really good. I was part of it. They didn't look good like that. Well, I was like, Sheriff?
Already hot.
It's already hot?
Yeah.
We'll cut off her sleeves by the end of the meeting.
Do what?
We're gonna cut off her sleeves by the end of the meeting.
I know it.
It doesn't feel like the heat turned like it usually is in here.
It was so darn hot.
Because we don't turn the heat in.
Huh?
We don't turn on the heat in here because it gets so hot.
Right.
It does.
Yeah.
High school. How you doing? 1977.
1977, exactly right.
Ain't no way that was that long ago.
Doesn't feel, I don't feel old. I mean, that's what
I know. You feel like trying to get up out of bed in the morning.
And sometimes you like this, it's always been difficult for me.
They don't surprise me. Well, I was gonna say you're already in. Richard, how's your dad doing?
He's doing great.
I've been wanting to stop by and talk to him.
Sure.
I used to stop by and see him every now and then. At all.
He's doing wonderful. He just got new
Last year when I did the
Good for him. So he had slowed down then.
He's slowed down a little, but not much. So we're just increasing it that $1,000?
Yes, yeah, because otherwise I'm gonna be over.
I've been wanting to talk to him. Say something to him, and I just usually I'm wanting
What we
to
got is 2020, not 2020.
He's yeah, I was having trouble trying. I saw it highlighted.
And that's why I highlighted that. The other one is highlighted, like $1 million more. It'll be projected because of resale value and all that. That's why I highlighted that so you all can see. By one going up, but that's all it was. Just my salary. I'm doing well. How are you? That's what he said he would do.
So the rest of the budget's staying the same, just that.
All things are changing my salary. I know it's, but we based it on 2020, not 2020.
What's that going to?
Lamp and everything in it.
It was 104.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see. I got you.
It's got, it was 101.
Oh, yeah, underneath.
It's 3,000. That's what that's but that 3,000 was going to make my budget out.
That was here beforehand. That was here before.
used to be a group.
Yeah, but it's over here now.
I was going to call you and ask you that, but I
We
didn't.
get a table.
Thank you.
Well, it's got to come through the floor because everything feeds underneath.
I use it as a table if it's
That's good. So, answer your question, it's multi-purpose.
It is multi-purpose.
Fall over.
Everyone's up here. Yeah, I'll try not to trip it.
Workers' comp.
He wouldn't
I don't know what y'all do if I did, but.
even tell me.
Hello.
Well, change the
Now,
parts.
first team handle. Now the B team.
Thank you, Mitchell.
Got a pinch hitter here all of a sudden. Back to the starting lineup.
Thank you. Mitch, appreciate it.
We was gonna let Mitchell start the first inning. Okay, looks like it's 9:30. We'll get started. Welcome to our Clark County Fiscal Court meeting. Those of the public, we do appreciate you being here today and taking of your time to be with us. I'm going to ask our coroner, Robert Gayhart, if he'd come forward and give our invocation. If everyone would stand and remain standing for the pledge.
Let's bow our heads. Heavenly Father, I come before you this morning, Lord. I humbly come before you, Lord. Ask that you would hide me behind the cross this morning, Lord. Hide this court behind the cross, Lord, and the county business would be done in a fair and equitable way. God, and bless each person on this court, Lord, to do the things that they need to do to run this county and run it in a way that is fair and equitable to all. God, I ask for your hedge of protection around each one of the court members and their physical health. I ask that you would bless their lives and be a great blessing unto them. And Lord, I ask this prayer in the most precious name that I know, the greatest name, the name above all names, the King of kings and the Lord of lords, my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. At this time, we'll call our meeting to order, and I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Masters Graham,
Present.
Thompson,
Here.
Constantopoulos,
Present.
Blanton,
Here.
Davis.
Present.
And Elkins.
Present.
Okay. Public comments, I see no one signed up for public comments. Did anyone miss our sign-up sheet? Okay. Item number 4 on our agenda, we have a presentation by Danny Crum with Harp Enterprises regarding new equipment and software and everything that's a new requirement to provide, make sure, Danny, I say this right, a voter verified paper trail. And the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Appreciate y'all's time today. I'll be quick. But
Talk microphone.
okay, yeah. Michelle had just wanted me to come by and kind of talk about the quote that you see in front of you for equipment, as well as the need for new equipment. She has applied for a grant, which is around $57,000, I think.
17.
That's an estimated amount. So there's a pool of money that has promised to be distributed to counties that need new voting equipment. I think the 10th, you have to make the decision to take that money or not.
Yes.
If not, which I know that's pretty quick, if not, then the money that Clark County would have received goes back into the pool and gets distributed to the counties that are wanting to use that funding. The state and the federal government are both kind of pushing for this new equipment. It's not us as a vendor that's really pushing it. It's for a voter verified paper trail. So they want every voter that comes in to be able to verify that what they voted for is actually what's getting scanned. And everybody has a physical piece of paper at the end of the election to be able to pull out of that machine and hand count those ballots if we had to. Your current equipment does not have that capability on part of the equipment. So part of the equipment that you have is just an all-electronic piece of equipment. So the votes are cast on it. They're stored on the machine. I'm confident that those are correct, but there is not that physical paper copy at the end of the night that we can go back and hand count. So the quote you have in front of you here is what it would cost to get new equipment to run a full election, replace all of your current equipment, and be in compliance with that paper trail that the state is requesting.
Can I say something real fast, Danny?
Yes.
So this quote right here is only for 4 community-wide vote centers and track. This is not for the whole, I mean, we're not doing the whole county voting. We're just doing 4 community-wide centers and track.
You'll still keep all your physical precincts, but she's combining locations so that to reduce equipment costs and poll workers.
And COVID.
So I wanted to kind of open the floor up to you all. I know there's concerns about election equipment. Some common questions I always get is the whole modems in machines. Can these machines be connected to the internet? And no, they can't. None of our machines are connected to the internet ever. Even the equipment that we use at our office that we use to program and set up your all's equipment, those are restricted from the internet. There's no access to that, never plugged in. Machines run in what we call kiosk mode, which those machines are only designed to run one specific program, and that's the election program, so that no other software can be inserted into that machine. And then Harp Enterprises, we've been your all's vendor for as long as I've been there, 20 years. I think it's probably more like 30 years that y'all have been our vendor, and we use a secure process to set those machines. We physically bring your cards that store the election information here. Actually, we set them in our office. You all store your machines at our office. So we set those machines in our office. They're sealed, locked, and then I think your road department comes and picks those up and delivers those machines. So there's never another party involved with, a mail, bringing that media in the mail, that type of thing. A lot of security processes that we use. You guys have any questions as far as?
Probably not for you, but for Michelle and the judge. First question comes to mind, with this amount, are we exempt from the procurement code, or, that's good, he's our vendor and he's give us a price, but with this amount, I would think we'd have to go through the procurement process.
Well, here's the thing, I applied for a grant back in 18 and got 2 voting machines. So we've got 2 already. If we go with another vendor, we cannot use those. Harp Enterprises is just up the road from us. If we ever need ballots.
I'm aware of all that, but I'm concerned about.
Well, ESS, is that you?
Oh,
Yes.
It's the only other vendor that has these and they're out of state.
Okay.
What did Campbell County do? We were talking about Campbell County the other day.
So Campbell County did the exact same situation as Michelle. There was a grant offered last year, end of last year, that you applied for. You got a certain amount of money. They distributed it. I don't know how they figured out how much money they got. It was completely random. But Michelle was able to get enough to buy a couple of pieces of equipment for us, so you didn't want to lose that money. It was kind of, if you don't use it, you lose it. So she went on and purchased a couple because it was under the amount to put that out for bid. Campbell County did the exact same thing, and they bought, I think they got enough for 4 pieces of equipment. So when it came time to buy this new equipment, they're also getting this grant. They went with the sole source provider because they already have that equipment, and the new equipment that you're going to be purchasing would need to conform to that, or you're going to basically lose the money that you got from the previous grant. And that may be county attorney question, and I had given Judge Brandon the contact information to the Campbell County, so it might be something.
And I've got that if you all want, anybody wants to talk with Campbell County.
I just don't want to get dinged by an audit at some point in the future. It says,
Well, and this would be for William, and William may want to talk with Campbell County attorney. He basically supported the purchase of these.
Yeah, and they've actually just signed
But
the
I don't know,
contract.
William, what rationale he used.
I'm not certain what so what's
The question is, it's over a $30,000 threshold, and we've got a sole source provider, or it won't match up with our 2 machines that were purchased through the grant.
Oh, so, as long as you set out your reasons for deviating from the procurement policy as written, and this being a sole source provider, I think you're fine.
Okay, and we would set that out in the order.
Well, or you could establish your reasons in writing.
Okay,
At the
okay,
point that you request the funds.
okay.
and, this question's for you, Alicia. Can we use ARPA money on this?
I would have to look into that. I do know that I have heard that a county clerk did use that because of COVID. They explained it like COVID. I think it's like COVID unrelated, that they needed additional machines or they needed whatever. So I would need to look into that more in order to give you a better answer.
Thank you.
So it's my understanding that we received a $50-some thousand grant.
And we're gonna get that in February.
So we're gonna get the money in February,
Yes, and it has to be spent. What we're asking for today is that you all think about this. If we get to go this route, we'd like to purchase them by January to be able to use them for the May primary. It takes about 45 days, is that correct?
Yeah.
Give or take, to get the machines in.
So you need to do a vote by this month or first meeting of January?
Yeah, this is just like a FYI, to be able to use these in the primary, because we have to be trained on them so
Sure.
that we know what to do in order to tell the poll workers. But then as you all, everyone in this courtroom voting on, these machines are totally different. Totally different. So no one's gonna be able to just go in there and vote. They're not gonna know how to do them. They're not gonna know where to put the paper. They're not gonna know anything about it.
Let me follow up back. So we're looking at 70,000 coming from the county,
Correct.
roughly. I mean, it's
Yeah,
about
right.
69 something, some change. So my other question is that these scans where we have scanning machines now where we fill out a paper ballot. I mean, it's what I used, and then you put them into a machine and it scans them. So are
You're
these?
still gonna have those, but they're totally different. These are like the size of a soup, let Danny speak on that.
And I'll speak, so I think I know where you're going with that, because I get this question all the time too, is that, so the big reason for purchasing the new equipment is to get rid of the all electronic equipment, the piece of equipment that basically provides ADA support for a blind voter, somebody with no arms that can actually vote on the equipment by themselves, and then also get a piece of paper like everybody else at the end of the night. Right now, that's not the case. So I always get, well, can we just purchase the ADA equipment? And because we've already got scanners. But this goes back to that whole security issue, especially with elections now, is that those scanners and current equipment that you have, 15-year-old technology. This is brand new technology. So you're trying to match up with, equipment from 15 years ago versus equipment of today. You lose some of that security issue. It also would make a nightmare on election night reporting for Michelle, because you've got two different systems that you're trying to get results from two different pieces of equipment. I don't know if that's where you were going with that or not, but
Yeah, sort of.
Okay,
Sort
yeah.
of with that. But I mean, ultimately, these machines, after, each scan machine, they're gonna hit a button and it's gonna print out the totals of everybody that slid in, slid
So
a
at the
piece
end
of
of the
paper in
night?
there. Yeah, at the end of the night. yeah.
correct. You'll get a paper tape that shows those results from each machine, and then there's also a card, election media, that stores the results. It also has the election information on it. Those are pulled from each machine and brought back to a central tabulation, which is here. And we'll read those into a computer, which also tallies those automatically. And so then that tally can be matched up with the individual paper tapes to make sure those match.
The machines we're using right now were bought with HABA dollars in 2009. And if we don't buy new machines this year, we do have maintenance. We had two that went down in this previous election. Thank goodness we had a few extra ones, but
And not to scare you, your machines are fine right now, but I'm also not allowed to sell any more of the old machines that don't provide a paper trail. So as a vendor, nobody in Kentucky is allowed to sell a piece of equipment that doesn't provide a paper trail now. So if you were to have 2 or 3 machines that went down, the electronic ones, I can't sell you anymore. So that tells me they're they're gonna push to get rid of the electronic equipment. So if you don't buy it this year, you're probably gonna have to buy it within the next couple of years. And they're basically giving you $60,000 to help this year.
So we have 2 different methods of voting, don't we? Like that, some little computer screen and then a
your E-slate and
scanner.
your e-scan.
So is that gonna change?
Kind of. So we still need, by federal law, you're required to have an ADA compliant device to let a voter who could not vote on their own have a machine that can help them mark their ballot for them. You have that one now, it just doesn't provide a paper trail, which that's the one with the wheel. So that would be replaced with another machine, which still has the wheel, the headphones, so that they can vote, but it gives you a piece of paper at the end of the night. So it is kind of 2 different voting methods. One method that you're going to keep is the pre-printed ballots. So most people, it's the quickest way to vote. I'm just going to give you a pre-printed ballot. You're going to fill it out and scan it in. If somebody needs to use the ADA device, they're going to go over to it, use it. It's going to give them a piece of paper. They're going to scan it into that same scanner.
So one of these 13 is a ADA machine.
Okay, good question. I'll go down this list real quick here for you. The Verity Scan, 13 of those would be the scanners. And I think, Michelle, you're planning on doing 2 scanners at each location.
Yes.
So that keeps the lines down, and it's a quick scan. If you all have used it before, you fill it out, you walk up to the scanner, you scan it in, and you're done. It's 10 or 15 seconds. But in a big election, you don't want to have a line waiting at the scanner. So Michelle's plan is to have 2 scanners at each location. You'll need a scanner for early voting. So there's 3 days now of no excuse on early voting. Similar to what we did last election, we had, I think, 14 days. They cut that down to 3. So anybody can come in the Thursday, Friday, or Saturday before Election Day to vote with no excuse. So you'll need a scanner for that. You're also going to still need a scanner for your absentee mail. So those ballots that go out to mail, that come back. Michelle has to scan those in as well, so you need one of that. And then obviously we're gonna need some spares just in case problems, or if a polling place gets overwhelmed and you need to take a third scanner out. You know, that's what the 13's for. The ADA device, which we call the Verity Duo standalone, I've got 7 of those because you're only required to have one of those at each location. So we would only need 4 of those plus your early voting plus a couple of spares. So we need less of those than the actual scanners. Verity drives, as I mentioned, each machine has a drive in it that stores the election media, or I'm sorry, the election information that we put on it, as well as the cast vote records. So you've got to have one of those for each machine, and then we've got to have several of those spares. And then a Verity key, which is a security token. So it's a little blue drive that is mandatory to have that to be able to set the election information on those machines. It's also required at the end of the night when they go to read those cards, you have to have one of those in there. That information on that card has to match the information on the drives that were in the machine. So if those two don't match, you're not going to be able to read. It's all security to keep somebody else from coming in with random cards and reading them into your election. So we have 4 of those on there as well. I do have the disposal fee. That's optional. You don't have. We've got a contract worked out with a company that basically shreds those and recycles them. We pull the batteries out. You know, can't just bury the batteries for environmental reasons. We have to pull the batteries out, and then those machines get recycled. We don't make any money on that. That's just what they charge us to get rid of that. You guys are welcome to do that yourself. If your road department wants to destroy those, the state just has to have a certificate of destruction. You got to surplus those. You're welcome to save that money and get rid of that yourself. So that's optional.
Any other questions, comments?
Just for
Yes.
clarification purposes, thank you, Judge. For clarification purposes, you're suggesting that we make this change so we can have a paper ballot receipt, I guess?
It's not no, it's not a receipt. It's a voter verified paper. So the person that uses that piece of equipment that provides the paper, there's a copy of it, physical copy of it, just like everybody else that used the pre-printed ballots at the end of the night. So your current system doesn't provide that. It's an electronic. When they make their vote record on that machine, it's stored on the machine, and there's no paper copy. There's not a receipt given to the voter.
But when I vote, I take a paper ballot, I pencil in my selections, and then scan that.
Correct.
So don't we already do that?
Mostly, but you also have that ADA device, the handicap device, to where if somebody's blind or physically can't, or even has a hard time seeing, it's a little bit bigger screen, so they can actually vote on a piece of equipment that's currently electronic that doesn't print that paper at the end of the vote process.
When they get through voting on that one, it punches up a flag and says your vote has been cast. Now it's gonna print out the same piece of paper that you voted on, and then you're gonna take it over and stick it in the machine. And then therefore you got a paper trail now.
And the cost for that's $127,000.
State mandated, I mean, we're gonna have to go to this. I mean, was it 2023? It's gonna be mandated, or?
I'm not sure if they've given the exact date, but
I mean, I'm all about protecting voter integrity. That's
so
very
it's not,
important to me.
it's, you can't really look at it as 127 just for that, because you are getting all new scanners as well, which unfortunately we can't, I mean, you just can't, just like a phone or any kind of a computer, you can't keep using them forever. You know, they're eventually gonna die, and there's no parts to replace them, and that type of thing. And your machines are getting to be close to 15 years old. I mean, we're gonna have to replace them eventually anyway.
And not to be disrespectful, and I promise you I'm not.
Sure.
Then if that's the case, are we replacing everything? Why would we not get 3 vendors to supply 3 quotes and?
Well, there's only one other one certified to even sell. So with the election process, the election equipment, all your machines have to be federally and state certified, so there has to be a process for both. There's only currently 2 vendors in Kentucky that are certified to sell, and that's us and ES&S.
And I'm not knocking the job you've done at all,
Sure.
but for $127,000, I'd kind of like to know if that's in line with what other vendors are charging. That's only my thought.
But don't forget, we're getting 57,000 that I applied for.
I get that, and I'm okay if we need to,
And it is mandated, you have to have, because of ADA, we have to have the machines.
Who's the 57,000 coming from?
The state, that's HAVA dollars.
It's leftover HAVA dollars
Okay.
from,
Okay.
yeah, there's money that's been in this pool that's,
And then you had to apply for it.
Yeah.
So I applied for it, and that's what my letter says that I'm gonna be getting.
And
Could
you-
be a little bit more though, if other counties end up not buying machines at this time. If you don't use the money, you lose it. There is no saving it.
you don't want to lose that money.
I don't, because,
But,
you know, if we were to do the whole county, every precinct that we had, I think the quote was 330,000 to do the whole county.
And you have to commit by the 10th?
so she has to let the state know that she is going to use that money.
By the 10th of this month?
Yeah,
Of December?
Is it December or January?
I thought it was December, but I could be wrong, Michelle.
Okay, 2 days.
But that doesn't mean the process is done.
I
That just
understand.
means, yes, we're going to buy equipment.
I understand. Doesn't mean we're gonna buy it from you, it just means we're
Exactly.
gonna buy equipment, we're gonna use the money.
Right.
But I also want you to think about too, that we store all of our machines at Harp Enterprises. I don't know where we would store them.
I'm not trying to go that route at all, I'm just clarifying that you have to commit by the
There's
10th.
no room here.
But we pay for that storage.
We
okay.
do, but it has to be climate control and they are locked up there, secured and all that.
It sounds to me like you need the court to tell you today whether we're gonna,
I would
not
like that.
not necessarily,
I would like that,
not
but
necessarily accept this quote, but whether we're gonna buy new machines or
I
not.
don't want to accept 57 too, and it could be, you know, we may potentially get maybe even 60. I don't want to lose that. If we lose it, you all have to pay for it.
I'll offer up a motion that that you inform the state that we're gonna spend that $57,000. I agree with that. And then the other questions we can have answered before we actually approve the purchase of an agreement. I agree with that.
Is that a second?
Yeah.
You seconded it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And I'll be happy to actually bring the equipment to you guys if you want to set up a day where Michelle's actually got some of the equipment over in her office. I can come and demo that to you as well.
Okay, I think we have a motion and a second on the floor by Magistrate Constantopoulos, second by Magistrate Thompson. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Danny, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dean.
Thank you.
Be careful.
Okay, item number 5, consider approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Motion by Magistrate Davis.
Second.
Second by Magistrate Elkins. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, you have a transfer order.
Motion to approve?
Motion to
Second.
approve by Magistrate Constantopoulos, second by Magistrate Blanton. Discussion? Questions? Nope. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. You have, I think we have prepaid bills list and then two prepaids and a regular.
Motion to approve?
Motion to approve by Magistrate Constantopoulos,
Second.
second by Magistrate Blanton. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. You have your treasurer's report for November.
I had one question on that for Alicia, just something to look at. Don't have to answer it now or today, but I noticed that the line item 01512 -569, training for the fire department, the October claims allowed was higher than the November claims allowed. So for November, the spending was a negative number, may have been a credit invoice or something there. Credited, I don't know, it just looked odd to me. In October, Alicia, I think we had the claims allowed at $5,853, and then November, we had the claims allowed at $4,144. Yep, thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Okay. You will have a couple letters that we sent out with the packet. We don't need any action on these. These were simply informational only. And when the Aarons approached me, they thought that you all, this property in question is actually under the purview of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and it's inside the city limits as well, and I expressed that to them. But they wanted the fiscal court members to have copies of these letters. She thought that you all had received them before, and I said, well, I will include them with the packets and then make sure they get them. So. Okay, item 10, presentation of programs and agreements for workforce. We have Andrew King here with us. I'm going to invite Andrew to come to the podium. These agreements we did approve last year, I think, Andrew? Yes. And you have the floor.
Thank you, Judge. Just to introduce myself again, my name is Andrew King. I work at the Kentucky Career Center as the business services consultant for Madison, Clark, Estill, and Powell County. My role is to assist the businesses and organizations with identifying job seekers and connect the job seekers that come to work with us and connect with our talent development specialists to identify employment opportunities for them, as well as training opportunities for those job seekers. Today, what I wanted to bring to you all is the renewal for the Work-Based Learning Program and National Dislocated Worker Grant Agreements. These are our master agreements for our grant-funded work placement programs. So through this grant, we can establish the fiscal court systems as an official work site with the Kentucky Career Center, as we did last year. And through this, we can place these job seekers into work that we are working with into work experience opportunities here at the fiscal court with the road department. I think I have some examples actually for up to 480 hours on the Kentucky Career Center's payroll. So we will take care of all of their hourly wages during that time for up to 480 hours, including the workers' compensation insurance. Now the way that this works is there's a pool of funds allocated to each job seeker that is enrolled with us. That amount is $10,000, and we use those funds for either training opportunities to obtain, for example, a CDL, SRNA, CNA certification, or a work placement opportunity, that's where that 480 hours comes into play. Should we use a portion of their funds for training, let's say $4,000 for a CDL, that would leave $6,000 that we can allocate for work placement opportunity remaining, and that would of course affect the amount of hours by calculating the hourly rate by the amount that's left over in their account. Some of the position, I've actually set this up with other fiscal court systems throughout the Bluegrass as well. In the process of setting this up in Estill County again, we're looking at utilizing positions in the road department, parks and recreation, dispatch EMS, sheriff's office, senior citizen center, the judge's office, animal shelter, and anything else that we can come up with as time goes on. Right now, we're looking at positions that are immediately available. However, as positions come available throughout the different departments that the fiscal court oversees, we can add positions as that come. With the work-based learning master agreement, this does cover the 480 hours. Under the National Dislocated Worker Grant, which we also signed last year, that is a program designed to help assist those job seekers that have been dislocated from work as a result of COVID-19, and we have now expanded that program to include all dislocated job seekers. This program, the National Dislocated Worker Grant, will actually expire this coming March, but anybody that is placed into this program prior to March will be allowed to complete the full hours or the full amount that is allocated to them. For this specific grant, we have $20,000 allocated to each job seeker, or 2,000 hours or 1 year of service in the placement. Do you have any questions for me so far?
So you will pay up to $20,000 for the term of the employment?
That's correct,
okay.
Yes. So that $20,000 will be used for the hourly wages. Now, these positions do need to be hourly positions. They cannot be salaried or commission-based or anything like that, just for the purpose of our funds. We are grant funded through the Workforce and Innovation Opportunity Act.
And that hourly wage is what we have already established.
Exactly. So
Okay.
that hourly rate is, what we are going to set on their new hire paperwork is what the hourly rate that you would hire them on at yourself, should you decide to move forward that way. And then, that way it's a smooth transition. Once they complete their hours, you all have the opportunity to offer them full-time employment after they complete this work experience placement. But you're obligated to do so. You have the choice to offer employment or not. In which case, if you were to not decide to move forward with offering them direct hire employment, we'll work with them ourselves to try to find them other opportunities. So I think it's a really great opportunity for the fiscal court to sign back on, especially with the way that our labor force is kind of transitioning back now that the pandemic is sort of allowing job seekers to reenter the workforce at this point and encouraging job seekers to reenter. I think it's a really great opportunity to re-sign and utilize the program again.
So we get the employee and you pay for him?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
That's
I
right.
move that we enter into this agreement, Judge.
Okay, have a motion by Magistrate Blanton to authorize Judge Executive to sign the agreements.
I'll second that.
Have a
motion.
second by Magistrate Constantopoulos. Any discussion? Questions? Comments?
If I'm not mistaken, we utilized this last time as well.
What I would like to do this time around, if you don't mind me saying, is to actually sit down with each department, identify the positions that you all would like to utilize, and then we have the job descriptions attached to the end of the agreement. And of course, we can look at it, make sure that everything fits, and that it's going to be a great fit for the program.
Yeah, and of course, Janet, you can do that through our Human Resources Director. She will work to facilitate that for you as well.
Excellent.
Okay, a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much, Andrew.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, magistrates.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 11 is with regard to our health insurance benefits and other benefit insurance for our employees. And we need to authorize the Judge Executive to sign the documents for renewal. Is that right, Danny? Danny's here with us if anyone has questions for him from Neely and Wade. And Nevin's here. I'm sorry, Nevin. Thank you both for coming. I'll just give you the floor, Dan, if you want to say something or.
Actually, if you all have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
And this is basically so we can get started on our open enrollment.
Yes, and set the open enrollment date.
Motion to approve, you sign the documents, Judge.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. In this motion, do we need to set a date? Or can you all do that administratively? Okay. Okay, we have a motion by Magistrate Blanton to authorize Judge Executive to sign the document.
Second.
Second by Magistrate Davis. Any discussion? Question? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all so
right.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 12 would be consider approval of a budget amendment for the county clerk's calendar year 2021 budget.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Magistrate Constantopoulos.
Second.
Who got that? Motion.
He looks better than me today.
He looks better.
You like his outfit?
Second by Magistrate Blanton. Any discussion?
What was the purpose for the
It was
amendment?
my salary. So remember when we presented last year, I said no change?
Right.
Well, then in February, my salary changed, and we did not take that.
I understand.
So it's like $3,000 difference right there, but it was gonna throw us out of lines on our budget.
Any other questions? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have consider approval of the county clerk's calendar year 2022 budget.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Magistrate Constantopoulos. Second by Magistrate Elkins. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you all.
And then consider approval of an order setting the salaries for the county clerk's deputies.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Magistrate Elkins, second by
Second.
Magistrate Constantopoulos. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And again, thank you all.
Item 15, consider approval of the sheriff's calendar year 2022 budget.
Motion approved.
Motion by Magistrate Constantopoulos,
Second.
second by Magistrate Thompson. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All righty, moving right along on the next page. Item 16 would be consider approval of an order setting the salaries for the sheriff deputies.
Motion approved.
Motion by Magistrate Constantopoulos,
Second.
second by Magistrate Thompson. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And item 17, consider approval of state advancement notification for the sheriff.
So moved.
Motion by Magistrate
Second.
Elkins, second by Magistrate Constantopoulos. Discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 18, consider an order approving a status change and increase in rate of pay for road department employee Derek Fox, who will be moving to solid waste.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Magistrate Davis, second by Magistrate Constantopoulos. Any discussion?
Just a comment, Judge. Since we met a few weeks ago and we had discussion about the minutes versus the orders, the agenda says change of status and the order says transfer. I know they're the same technically, but really, if we're going to do this thing, we're going to go by one or the other, and the minutes need to reflect all three need to say the same. So it's either change of status or transfer. So no one probably agrees with me, but I think they all three ought to say the same.
How would you like to read, Magistrate Blanton?
I mean, whoever does the agenda and whoever does the order needs to communicate what they want to do. It's either a change of status or a transfer. I'm open to a change or not.
I think this, in this case, it's technically a transfer. He's going from department to department.
That's what I thought, but I've been known to be wrong a lot.
Let's make it a
Magistrate-
transfer.
Magistrate Davis would.
Transfers.
Okay. Motion to approve a transfer and second.
No second.
Okay.
Yes.
And I always take the minutes from the header, whatever's on the header of the agenda.
The header
that's
of
what-
the-
That's what I always.
But the agenda says something different, so I'm just a word to whoever does those. We need to make sure that they're all consistent.
Point taken. I think we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have an order granting permission to open a new payroll checking account to the county treasurer. for
So
our pay-
moved.
I'm sorry, motion by Magistrate Davis,
Second.
second by Magistrate Constantopoulos. Discussion?
Just again, the one says open and one says establish. I hate to be nitpicky, but again, we need to
Well,
do
Since the
some.
order says establish,
But I think Michelle says that she makes the minutes reflect what the order says, so it shouldn't make a difference because the minutes are the record of the meeting.
Well, well, I won't go there.
okay, do we have any other discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 12, we received a notification from several groups that are working together in the community under the Housing and Homeless Work Group, and they list some of the groups, organizations that are involved. Several of them are with us here today. I see Terry Davidson with Homeless Coalition and Juanita Everman with Achieving Recovery Together. I hope I didn't miss anybody, Terry. And this is a request to establish an extreme weather event. And I'll just give you the floor if you want to say something to kind of clarify this. Or
Yeah, I'm sure. That probably work better. So the Homeless and Housing Work Group has been working together since the beginning of COVID. I think we started in May of last year. And it's a group of about 15 represented and a number of other organizations and agencies throughout the community that have participated in this. Travis Thompson has been on calls numerous times, depending upon the issue, as has Chief Asbury, and I can't even tell you who all, but a lot of people. Henry's been on a number of the calls too. Anyway, one of the concerns is we've kind of continually tried to address the issues for our homeless population that have changed throughout COVID. And COVID has changed, as you know, for everyone, everything. And our shelters have been required often to be at half capacity. During the peaks of COVID, we've had to reduce to half capacity. The Beacon has had 4 outbreaks, I do believe, and had to lock down for at least 2 weeks at a time due to COVID outbreaks. It's just what we've had to deal with. And so as we're looking at winter coming once again, we're very, very concerned if these events happen again, which who knows if this will happen or not, we don't know. But we do know that we have a number of people, and the number of homeless within our community has increased over the course of COVID, and increased significantly. Don't have exact numbers on that, but the number that we're seeing in walk-ins, the number in the camps, the number living under bridges and in abandoned buildings is higher than we've ever seen before. And so we want to provide a place where people can go when the temperature is below 20 degrees to get indoors overnight. And then we've got day warming centers set up at a couple of the churches have agreed to do day warming centers to get people in and out of the cold so we don't have people dying because of cold. And so that's basically what this request is to help fund some of the costs associated with this. The Homeless Coalition has asked to be fiscal agent, has been asked by the group to be the fiscal agent for this, and that's why I'm standing up here talking to you instead of somebody else. But there's a lot of us that have been involved, and this is our proposal. So as you'll notice on the budget request, there's request for basically some expense for PPE. There's request for hotel rooms, and that might seem odd, but that is specifically if we have someone walk in to the overnight, the extreme weather event shelter, EWE. Somebody walks into the EWE and has a temperature, has COVID symptoms. We're going to first get them triaged. We're going to try to get a rapid test, send them to the ER or to a place to get tested as rapidly as possible. But if they're COVID positive, we don't want them going back out on the streets. Because if they go on the streets, they're going to go from a trap house to a trap house to a friend's house, a night here, a night there, a night there, a night there. And instead of one person with COVID, you've got 100. So, to avoid that, we've got a hotel respite model set up. This is what Lexington and many of the other cities and communities throughout the state and nation are doing so that we can have some funds to be able to put them in a hotel in Lexington that has agreed to take them. There's not one within our community that has been willing so far to do that. But we can get them to that hotel. The transportation cost is significant at about, $400 a trip because the individual is COVID positive. And so, but this will allow us to have that backup plan, that plan to keep everyone safe and not spread COVID. There's a cost for meals. Also because of COVID, we want to have meals brought in so that we're keeping everyone safe. You don't have everybody standing in line next to each other, hacking and coughing. And our homeless population are physically very frail. And, I personally know it's cold as crap out there to me right now. I got my little warm sweater on and a long sleeve shirt, and I'm cold just walking from my car. And I can't imagine spending the night out in this or days upon end. And that cold takes a severe toll on people's physical health. Most of our homeless population suffer from many health conditions, many. And that's been true all along, and COVID has really exacerbated that. So we want to do what we can to help this population, and that's what we're asking you to do, is to pitch in. The City Commission did approve half the funding request last night, the $5,493 from the city, and we hope that y'all will help us to protect our community.
I'd offer a promotion that the $5,493 is the request, be taken from the community fund for this venture.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Magistrate Constantopoulos to fund this request from the the Fiscal Court Community Foundation funds, and a second by Magistrate Davis. Discussion?
I'd like to amend that motion, since this is COVID related, I'd like to amend that motion that we take it from ARPA money.
Related.
That's what she said.
Well, the hotel may be
That's
COVID
exactly what she
related.
said.
Well, pretty much
But
the
not
entire
the
thing
glove.
is, that is the primary reason, was due to COVID, we can't provide the space. We can't promise that we would have overflow space or overnight shelter available. So,
So it's separating people, I guess, or social
yes,
distancing.
social distancing, or should there be an outbreak in one of the shelters and then you can't bring anyone else in, that type of thing.
Okay, makes sense.
Okay, let's go to our procedures here. We have a motion to amend the motion by Magistrate Blanton, to amend the motion by Magistrate Constantopoulos to basically state that this would come from ARPA funds. Do we have a second to that motion first?
I'll second it for discussion, Judge.
Okay, we have a second on that motion by Magistrate Thompson. Did you get on?
I did, yes, thank you.
Okay, discussion. on-
I'd offer that I think this is, I think it's a good cause, certainly. I think, as far as I'm concerned, the only discussion is where does the funds come from?
Right.
I think the community fund is probably, that's exactly what the community fund is set up for, are projects just like this, causes just like this. And I want to be careful about just spending ARPA funds on anything and everything. I know that we need to spend them, I'm not opposed to that, I want to be careful with that. But I think the community fund is probably the exact right place to get these funds from.
I agree with everything you said, Magistrate Elkins, but I add one thing to it. One complaint that I get from places in this community about that is we've opened the door in the last couple of years to using money out of the community fund year-round. And we have an application process for that. Me and you and Magistrate Davis, me and you and Magistrate Davis sat on that committee and issued that money. This wasn't applied for with that. I do agree the community fund's appropriate for it, but I have a hard time explaining to people why we have an application process, yet we continue to let people come in and get money any time of the year. And I would prefer that this request been made to the community fund during that application process. I understand we didn't know about it then. I get it. I get it as much as anybody. I just, last week, let someone spend the night in the police department lobby on a cold night, so I get it, and I support it, but, and we can't just throw ARPA out every time we need money.
Yes,
Totally agree, totally agree. But I would just offer that up, and that's why I seconded that motion. I have no problem with it coming from the ARPA, and I won't not support it if it comes from the community fund, but I just point out that I do get that complaint regularly.
I do too.
Well, and, you know, the community fund was, you know, set up for these organizations. There is a process that is in place, but not every situation is known about prior to application for that. And I mean, there are some extreme circumstances where we've approved outside of that. This is something that wasn't known about prior to the application process. And because of that, I don't think we say, well, we can't use that community fund, which was established for that, because the project wasn't readily known at that point. This is a different situation like that. So I think it's perfectly appropriate to use the community funds for that. And I echo the statements by Magistrate Elkins and Magistrate Thompson here in regards to the ARPA funds. I mean, you know, eventually, I think we kind of discussed it in one court meeting that we're going to have a, you know, kind of workshop to find out exactly everything that we're going to spend that money for. And so I hate to just start spending that, you know, freely without having a big picture look of what we're going to use that money for in the future. So I'm for taking it from the community fund.
Can I explain for just a second?
Yes.
Just to maybe clarify just a little bit.
I'm going to assign the treasurer the floor if y'all have no objection.
No objection.
Okay, so, I do understand the community, I'm not the foundation, I'm not funding, but we've allotted for like this year, we've allotted and already like spent those funds. So the community foundation funding that we still have is a remainder from the previous years. So it's not like they're outside of the process of the approval for this year, because that funding is already gone. It's just the additional that has been accumulated from previous years that is still in that account.
But we still have, we of course
Yes.
have access to the
Yes.
accumulation, so.
Right. So it is not at the community foundation for this grant period that we did.
And I think that
It's
accumulation is where we've taken a lot of those extraordinary
Yes, because we have
kind
a
of pop-up
report.
expenses, yeah.
We have a report that we give to the foundation of our spending for that grant period. So those funds are already, spent and allotted to, the approval that you all did. So these are outside of that in the additional that has been accumulated for how many years that this has been going on.
And so people understand, we don't hold out a lot of those funds to keep. It's just where we may give a matching fund or something of that nature, and someone doesn't use that matching fund, so we don't intentionally sit on that money. And that's not why we have a surplus, but the fact is we do have a surplus, and I think it'd be appropriate to take it from that.
I know this year we expended 100% of what was on the
That's
table.
correct, we
so-
did. Or we appropriated that,
And
I guess.
and I appreciate you making that comment, because those people that got denied, it wasn't because there wasn't money, it's
That's
just,
right.
we used it as we saw
We
fit.
did spend 100% of what we had to
I
spend.
think the last several years, we've spent 100% of it. I just think it's in the past where it's accrued.
Okay, other discussion? And to restate the motion, in the subject we're discussing, it's to amend the motion by Magistrate Constantopoulos to take it from the ARPA funds instead of the Community Foundation funds. Does everyone understand the question? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Okay, hold on, who's my nose?
Four. Yes. So the motion fails, okay.
Don't give up yet.
Now we'll go back to our original motion was to fund it and then take it out of the Community Foundation funds. Any other discussion on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Terry, thank you, and
Terry,
good luck
Judge.
to you all.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Commissioners.
Terry, I know the mayor asked last night, but will you give us a report as to how the funds were expended
Absolutely.
when the winter's over with?
We absolutely will.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you
Appreciate it.
so much.
Thank you. Okay, item number 21 is listed as a discussion, and this evolved from last couple or three of our fiscal court meetings, and Magistrate Constantopoulos made a motion that was supported to discuss this again in a special called meeting within 2 weeks from the time of our last meeting. We tried to schedule a special meeting, did not happen. There seemed to be favor among the magistrates through email to do this in our regular meeting today, so it's on the agenda. So Magistrate Constantopoulos, I'm going to let you have the floor if you want to speak.
No, I
Well,
just wanted to.
we tried to gather some information and give you
Yeah.
all.
No, I just thought, when we were having the discussions about doing increases for certain, we ought to look at everybody and get the information and have a discussion about it so we can see what the full, financial impact of each decision was gonna make. So, one thing I just noticed on the information that was brought or given to us in our packet, each department's got a little bit different, ranging from a 7% increase, 5% increase to, 20-something% increase. So, I just think it's something we ought to discuss as a body and see how we want to move forward.
Judge, if I might,
Yes, sir.
I put some thoughts on paper, and if it pleases the court, I'll pass them around for everyone's review. And to kind of echo what Magistrate Constantopoulos was saying, what I'm passing around is more of a uniform approach to the increases, and I think, at least it's my best attempt at incorporating all county employees, whether they be fire department, road department, animal shelter, under your purview or whatever else. So if you look at the first page, if everybody's got that, that shows the inflation rate through October 21 for the previous 12 months has been 6.2%. That's a huge number. It's a number that's not normal. We don't hardly ever, I think that's the highest rate we've seen since 1990. It doesn't happen often. I do think that there's a need to increase salaries, even if we're doing it in midstream or mid-year, and I think that's what we're doing. So I thought the most uniform way to do it is to not disrupt the process. Don't forego raises in 22 or 23 or any time in the future, go ahead and continue with the process like we've always done it, according to the compensation plan, but across the board, give every employee a 6.2% increase that falls under this court's, animal shelter, fire department, your office, and I've got them laid out as best I could in these spreadsheets for each department and what the cost would be for each department if we were to decide we wanted to do this beginning January 1, what it would cost. And then on the last page, I've got a totals page. If you look at the last page that I sent around, it's a totals page, and it, in the very last column, the 22 fiscal year, which would be January 1 through June 30th, 2022, the cost would be approximately $134,000 to give raises to all those departments. And then I went down into each, I drilled down into each department's budget because I had two department heads that were very concerned about blowing their budget out of the water, as they say. And we should be proud of the fact that they're concerned about their budgets. That shows good leadership, good management. They want to get their employees increases, but they want to be careful not to blow their budget out of the water, as they said. So I appreciated them reaching out. So I looked at different ways that we could pay for each of those departments' increases, suggestions anyway. It's naturally up to you and the treasurer to decide where those monies would come from, but just some thoughts and suggestions to show that if we do incorporate a 6.2 increase across the board January 1, we can afford it, we can find the funds to do so, and I think it's probably it's what I thought the best approach to go about these increases, rather than giving one department 10%, one department 6% like they were asking for. I thought it may be just something we would consider as a court. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, sir. Floor is open. Anyone else?
So that, I'm just trying to decipher your spreadsheet. Greg,
Yeah, there's a lot
or
there, I
Magistrate
know.
Elkins.
You
So
keep
the-
thinking I'll add something to it. How about
So
that?
the 2022 fiscal year, so that's just from January of this
January 1, 22 through June 30th of
through
22.
June 30th.
That's correct.
Would be 134,163.96.
Approximately. Now, we've had some employees shift, like Mr. Fox, we just shifted, so if, I don't know what his new rate becomes, but 6.2% on top of that, probably gonna be a little more. So, I mean, that's why I say approximately. There may be somebody that we missed on this that we certainly don't wanna leave off. That's why I wanna be careful not to say it's just these people. It's, you know, if I missed somebody in the road department because they were hired in last week or just inadvertently left off of what I was, provided, I don't wanna not give them an increase too, so.
And then the total cost though, moving forward would be, what was the amount on that?
Yeah, because these increases are, I guess you would say, in perpetuity, they're going to continue on forever. The annual cost, if we were doing it for fiscal year 23, is going to be $268,000.
268, okay.
Yep, that will be the annual cost every year going forward. Of course, I don't think the inflation rate's going to go back down. I mean, I think the 6.2% will continue to build on top of it. Now, hopefully, we start trending at a lower pace and it gets back down to the 2 or 3% as we saw in previous years. But who knows, it could go to 10%. So, and if it does, we're probably gonna have to look at this whole thing again. But,
Can you tell me what's included in other?
I'm sorry?
Can you tell me who's included in other?
Yet, there should be another spreadsheet, Magistrate Thompson. I think the second page,
Is it-
if I'm
is
not
it listed?
mistaken.
I don't have another. I don't see one.
Well, I missed it then. That'll be the, hang on, I may have it in mine. I just didn't get it printed out on yours. Yeah, I'm not seeing it, so that'll be,
The judge's office, I would assume.
the judge's office,
What about the
correct?
jail?
Janet Townsend, Deanna Shelton, Amanda Sperling.
What about the jail?
Nope, the jail just did their increases.
I
so
agree with
didn't-
that, and so
yep.
does the jailer, so,
Yeah.
Corner,
I'm sorry?
corner,
I think the coroner, deputy coroner was in there, I think, but not the coroner.
Yeah, I don't think we can touch the coroner salary.
Ah, yeah,
until
but
May.
deputy coroners,
Deputy
yeah.
coroners.
Correct, yeah, the deputy coroner.
Sheriff's
I meant
office?
deputy.
He's
Did
got
not do
his-
the sheriff's
he's got
office,
his included.
because the sheriff did his.
It's not as much.
Yep.
At the county clerk?
I didn't do the clerk's office, but I did do the county attorney's office, because the clerk does her budget as well, so I didn't do hers.
So I have no issue with what you presented there, Magistrate Elkins, and if someone were to make a motion, I would
I'll
certainly
offer.
be in support of it, but let me say this, to see where the court stands on it. I came in here today with the opinion that I'm ready to talk about the premium pay with ARPA money for our employees. And I came in here with the opinion that I would prefer to put off any raises like this until we do our budget, like has been discussed, and use the ARPA premium pay to start that conversation. And I came in here with an intent to start that conversation with selecting an amount that we would do per employee, and that we would go back to 2020 employees to incentivize employees that have been with us, and to compensate employees that remain with us, and take that amount per employee and break it down by however many years we want to expend that. So I know we have about 6 years here to deal with that, and I thought that if we broke that down in 6 years, it incentivizes employees to stay with us and to remain with the county, knowing that they're going to get a premium pay every year. I'm not going to go in detail about that. I have details, but I'm not going to go in detail about that unless the majority of the court is interested in that. But it is something that I'm interested in. I think it's a way that we can certainly live within our budget that we have this year. Again, I'm not opposed to changing it. I want to see the employees get raises. So whatever the majority of the court feels is the route that I'm going to end up supporting. But I'm just offering up my opinion that I'm ready to have that premium pay conversation if the rest of the court is. So.
If I might back up just a bit, I found the other spreadsheet,
Yes, sir.
the other page in another spreadsheet that I had. It did include Janet Townsend, Amanda Sperling, Perry Wilson, Scotty Griffin, Deanna Shelton, Carl Stepp, Tommy Conkrite, Tony Kirk, and Scott Dawson.
So it does have everyone except the sheriff's office, the county clerk, and the
correct.
jail. And I'm okay with the jail. I had that conversation with the jailer. We just gave him the nod on pretty significant raises over there.
Correct.
And he was in agreement that we didn't need to extend that any further, as am I, so.
Yeah, those constitutional officers I didn't incorporate.
And I know the sheriff's budget was a 5% raise for his employees. If we're gonna do 6.2 for the rest of them, I'd like to see that he gets 6.2. So that's kind of the line I'm going down. And I don't know what percentage you're giving your employees in your budget. I don't know what the percentage is. I know you gave them a raise, but
I give them a raise every year.
it's not near 6.2%, so I would point that out. And that's just my opinion where I'm thinking about, and, you know, this is certainly something I'd be willing to look at the new budget. I'm willing to look at it today if that's what it takes to get our employees raises, because that's important to me. So I'm not speaking against it by any means, but I'm ready to have the premium pay ARPA conversation if the rest of the court is. So, but I'm not going to lay out a bunch of details and waste everybody's time if that's not a route that we want to go.
You know, one thing that I do want to mention with this, if the court decides to go down the route of your proposal, Magistrate Elkins, which I think it's a very fair and a good proposal with inflation being up as high as it is, if we do increase this 6.2%, we also should make an amendment to the compensation plan to increase the starting pay wages 6.2%. So that way it does bump up those starting wages on the pay plan. Does that make sense to everybody?
Does make perfect sense to me. I think that's kind of what I foresaw, or the intent of doing this, is that we increase the pay that we give by 6.2%, whether they start next week or started last week. Because I think that if you don't increase employee pay to keep up with inflation, you're technically cutting their pay. If inflation rate's 5% and you're only increasing by 2%, you've technically given your employee a 3% cut in pay, and I think that's why we should look at doing this as soon as we can, and I think a good time to do it is January 1. I also would offer that, not opposed, I even mentioned to the sheriff over the weekend that, you know, maybe we look at something for his guys as well. I don't think I even spelled it out what it was, but I did say I had something I wanted to talk to you about, and I just haven't had time to do it. But starting them in January, I think, gives us time even to come back later and do something with that, should we choose to do so. But I would offer up a motion to accept the 6.2% across the board pay increases for the employees of the road department, animal shelter, fire department, and the county attorney's office, and the others, and I'll provide that list for you, Judge, and we can amend it, I guess, as we need to going forward, but I'm gonna offer that as a motion.
Okay, we do have a motion on the floor by Magistrate Elkins, and I think you all heard his motion stated fair enough, 6.2%.
I'll second that.
The only thing I was gonna ask was what would be the effective date?
January 1, I'm sorry, yeah, January 1, 2022.
I'm checking with our treasurer because normally we need to start increases.
We can change rates in the middle of a pay period.
We cannot.
If you, isn't Janet still out there? I'm here. Okay.
Could you tell us?
You cannot. Yeah.
What would be our closest pay period in January?
We could just say the first full payroll in January.
First payroll.
The beginning
I
of the
will
first full
accept that,
payroll.
yes, sir, the first full payroll in January,
Pay period.
pay period, yeah.
Pay period.
Pay period.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
This includes all salary employees, and what about the ones that are just newly hired, and then the raises that you just given? Do they also impact those people?
I don't think we've newly hired anybody since I developed this spreadsheet, but I do think if we do hire anybody in the month of December, it should be incorporated in them as well, yes.
And what about the raises that you just?
We had two that we've already implemented in the last two
And
fiscal
they're not on
court
this
meetings.
list.
Okay. That's all I need to know.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, they are not, they would have fallen in the other category, but they're not on this list.
Okay, well, let me get my motion in second first. So you got the motion, I think
Yep.
you made a second. Okay. Let me go down this road because I was thinking, Janet, the same way you were. The employees that I brought to you all before, and certainly, and I appreciate this spreadsheet, Magistrate Elkins, it's very good and very, I like the idea of keeping our employees up with the cost of, what the inflation is, and it's been unusual. But another consideration on those two that I asked you all before were job duties and responsibilities, and then basically the level of skill, education, and performance that the two individuals have. And I've got two more on here today. Certainly the 6.2 is a consideration in those two before and the two today, but there are other circumstances as well to be factored into those. Would I still be able to seek those corrections? And keep in mind, these were brought to me when I was appointed and came into office, and that's the reason I brought them. I know that with one of them, it was a conversation with Judge Pace. Began there. There was conversation going on since I think March, Perry. Yeah, May of last year. That culminated in the request that I brought to you, and then with Amanda. And do you want to speak to that right now, or would you rather wait? Or okay. And like I said, certainly the 6.2 is a consideration, but with regard to these two, there are other circumstances behind the ask. Does that make sense?
It does.
If it's possible in a matter of procedure, if we could address those two before, I don't know if that's possible or not, but if we could address those
Separately?
two and then come back to this. That way, if the court decides to grant those, that maybe those names would be removed from this, is what I'm saying.
Is that,
Yeah, I suppose that does make sense. I mean, it's up to you to do it every how you'd like, and I'm
I'm
okay
talking
with-
about today. I'm just talking about
Right.
putting those two in front of this, and then if you need to, you could remove those names from this.
To the last item.
well, we've got a motion and a second. We could entertain a motion to table and make them, since this is a regular meeting.
Or we can just discuss the other ones while we're in discussion to see what.
They're
the
employees
consensus-
subject to this plan, so
Yeah,
might
so I
as
mean,
well.
we
I'm not opposed to that either.
just discuss it now and consensus.
That's
Okay,
fine.
that's
I mean,
fine.
I'll go with the will of the court. It's, I do think there's a legitimate reason that we brought these other two to you all today as well.
Okay,
As we did the two back ones.
I think it does make sense to discuss them, I guess, as a part of this discussion. We can do
Okay.
that.
And if you'll look at the orders that we provided you, they are more than 6.2%, I believe.
Let me offer just one consideration.
Yes,
I think
sir.
everybody would think about it will agree. I think in all fairness to Manager Thompson, it'd be best if he voted on the motion second now, so he'd be free to discuss and cast his vote there without having any reason that he might otherwise recuse if we were talking about just C-SEP rates.
Oh, I see.
So when you lump all that together, I think you raise difficulties for him that he doesn't need, and the court doesn't have to entertain them at the same time. In other words, you could say something in the next 10 minutes that might influence his vote.
I understand.
It has nothing to do with that, but it could give the appearance that it did. And I wouldn't want that to be a part of the record for safety's sake.
Very well said. So let's go back to the idea of,
Just remove
let's
them
go
off
back to the
list.
idea of making a motion to table them to item 23A on this agenda.
But I think what the,
You can still talk about those individually and talk about whether or not the 6.2 ought to be on top of what's been discussed. And
Right.
discuss those without intermingling them here.
so you could just do your 6.2 and go ahead and move the two that are up there off that list.
You could do
And
that.
then at that time, we can either do 6.2 or what's presented, or have the discussion about those two individuals.
I can
Is that what
support,
you're-
I can support that, yes.
Is that what you're
And
saying?
I'm absolutely gonna recuse from 23. I'm not gonna discuss it even in this discussion, but yeah, I can support, if those two names are off this list, I can support that.
And I think-
You definitely should have the opportunity to vote on it.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, but I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, County Attorney Elkins, if, in fairness to Magistrate Thompson and to allow him to vote on the 6.2, should I remove Perry Wilson from the other list? And that way he can vote on the increases for the 6.2, and then we'll discuss her 6.2 as a part of item 23.
I don't think there's any reason for him to have to remove, or for him to have to recuse when he's just talking about employee raises.
Okay.
That affects people not involving him in any way.
Yep.
But
All right.
if you make it particular, then that raises the issue.
I agree with that.
I just didn't want to lead him into a trap, so.
I appreciate it.
So where are we at?
Motion in a second.
We do have a motion and a second. And
Maybe a convoluted motion.
it's very convoluted, but I think we've worked through it.
Do we need a motion to amend that to remove those two names? Is that where-
If
is that
they,
where we're
if they're
going?
approved for the orders, then they would certainly not be on the list like the ones 2 and 3 weeks ago were, right?
I'm sorry, I
Magistrate-
didn't understand.
You can definitely leave those people in there and then decide what adjustments you might want to make by reason of this vote when considering those individuals.
exactly.
So that you leave everybody on the panel able to vote on the larger motion, should every employee get a raise.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's right. Yeah.
So we will leave them on there.
Gotcha.
Now the motion is stated. I'm hoping it's clear to everyone. Okay. We do have a motion and a second.
Yes.
Yeah. All,
Effective date of the first full pay period in January.
First full
Beginning
pay
of the
period
first
in
full pay
January.
I do have one more question.
yes.
Do we need to include Daniel's thought about increasing the starting pay as well in the compensation plan, or is that, will that be a separate item?
Isn't that an ordinance? Wasn't it created by
It's an ordinance. We're gonna have to have two readings on it.
So we'll
But
just do that separately then?
Yeah, but
Okay.
I mean, but if we have any hires between now and the amendment of that ordinance, I think if the starting pay is $15 an hour, they need to add 6.2% to
Okay,
that.
that's
Or
fine.
we can amend it here in the,
When we do
in
it,
the
when we
body.
do it, yeah, okay. That's
Because
fine.
if not, we're just,
I got you.
we're not
That's
making
fine.
any movement forward.
I would like to see the county clerk and the sheriff included in this.
In the 6.2?
Yes. How do we go about that?
I mean, that's,
But you don't run their payroll. so
Yeah.
Right,
We don't have any
that's
control over it.
they're they have their own budget, their own.
I understand that, but I'd like to see this court commit to making sure that they can do that.
Well, I'm open to having that discussion as part of a broader ARPA discussion.
Well, I tried to go to ARPA a minute ago, and nobody bit, so
Well,
I don't think we're gonna bite now.
And I think that ought to be it ought to be a separate discussion, and I don't mind doing it as under this item under the agenda or making a motion, even magistrate comments. But it is a separate pool of money. It could potentially involve other constitutional officers that we don't normally include in our payroll. So I think it's appropriate that we not include those two offices in this discussion.
And then if there are ARPA discussions, we could possibly include them in those discussions.
I'd be fine with that. I'm totally open to
They are
that.
county employees.
Yeah, totally open to that. Absolutely.
Got it, when Mr.
Is
Bowden-
that-
Okay, no, no.
Is that okay? Is that
I completely disagree, but I'm not gonna prevent employees from getting a raise, so.
okay?
If we're gonna talk ARPA, we're gonna talk ARPA as a whole. If we're gonna talk this, I mean, the sheriff just gave a 5% raise, but he'd probably like to give him another 1.2%. Am I right, Sheriff?
Well, but I think ARPA is a temporary and has a cap on it. This 6.2 is in perpetuity.
Agree,
It goes
totally
on
agree,
forever.
totally agree. I'd like to see every county employee get it, so.
Understand, but I just don't want to cause this 6.2 to sunset at some point. I want this to be forevermore for them, so. And if we use ARPA funds, it certainly will sunset.
Sure.
Well, I think what Travis was talking about was the 6.2 for the 6 years, and then it would be incorporated in those budgets.
Mine's more robust than that, but I'm not gonna
Yeah,
go into
yeah,
it
yeah,
if nobody's gonna look at it, so.
Well, I mean, here's the fact that we can do it this way. The county clerk, in her budget, I mean, she has excess fees that she returns back to the fiscal court. If she wants to give her employees an additional raise, it's gonna eat up that excess fees that's turned over to the court. So she has the authority to be able to do that right now if she wants to.
Is that true, Michelle? You have the money to do that now?
I think I do, that's what I'm sitting here doing right now. I
Yeah.
think, with the budget I just presented, I think I can do that.
Now and then with the sheriff's office, when we had our budget meetings, and we discussed, doing increases and so forth, there's actually talks, depending on funding and so forth, that we may have to put a separate line item or add additional money to the line item for those increases. And so I would be in full favor, if you're gonna do that cost of living increase to the 6.2, is that we add a little additional money into that line item that we're gonna have to do come budget time. And then that way, that'll get the additional 1.2 on top of that 5, and then you get your 6.2%.
If you're willing to commit to that, satisfies
And
me.
we can do that, but we just need to do that. That money will be added in the budget, at the budget time when we do our actual budget, because that'll be money that they will be submitting like we have those line items now. So I'm perfectly fine with that, but we can't mandate him to.
I understand that.
Michelle,
I understand completely. I'm
I'm
just
fine with
trying
it.
to.
No, I'm good with
And
that.
if you're willing to make that commitment, and the court's willing to make that commitment, I'm on board.
Yeah, I don't think we can make the commitment, but I do think we can entertain the conversation.
I'll remind you. How about
I
that?
think the appetite is there to have the conversation. How
I'll
about that?
remind you. How about that?
Well, I still don't think we can commit to a future vote, but,
Commit to talk about it.
yeah, we can commit to talk about it and consider it, that's correct.
I'll go ahead and call the question on this one.
Okay.
I just have a question.
Sorry.
real fast. Can I-
Okay.
I'm sorry. I want to make sure I'm clarifying this right. I am on a calendar year, not fiscal year. So would I need to give my 6.2 this year? Alicia, can you help me out here? 'Cause
In
you're
January.
But January, I start out with $0.
She starts out
I don't
calendar.
put myself in a bind January 1st with the increase for 13 people. I start out January 1st with it, just like the sheriff does. That's what I'm saying. So
But if you give the increase now, that 6.2% is going to be in perpetuity. So you're going to be starting out every year with 0. It's still 6.2%. But I don't know what kind of raise did you give everybody? 3.5%, 3%?
I just gave a flat rate to everyone.
What percentage was that?
It was 75 cents. So.
Oh, you gave a flat rate, not
So
a
the
percentage.
percentages vary.
Percentage.
Okay. So I don't know what that percentage would be if you gave
But
75
I don't
cents
put
to
myself in a
everybody.
bind January 1st that, I need a couple extra $1,000 and I don't have it the first. I guess that's what my question is.
And she's worried about her Alicia, she's worried about her cash
I
impact.
get
Right, because see, mine's, I started out with $0.
Commit to payroll that she
I'm
doesn't.
all for this, I mean,
Yeah, but if let's say you gave them instead of 75 cents, I'm just using this as a number, say you gave 75 cents worth a dollar, you're looking at the difference of 25 cents. Well, that, even if you're starting off now in January with $0, next January, you're still gonna have the same expenses starting off with $0.
But her problem is, and I think that I understand, is that we pay the first payroll on January on the 7th. She has to have the funds on January on the 7th to pay that first payroll. So that gives her like 4 days to be able to get enough. To be able to, I feel like her to pay the payroll on the 7th.
And for 3 of them, it's gonna be like $1.43.
Right. So I mean, it's a significant pay increase that she needs to make sure that she can cover.
It's a matter of
all the
having the money to
payroll.
cover it.
It's a matter of having the money covered.
Just make, you
Yeah.
can make it, if she makes it the second payroll in January, then she would be fine with that. I mean, that's your call. I mean, that's your,
If you're giving all county employees a raise with the first full pay. I can change my
you can do whatever you wanna do, yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to abide by the.
I don't think they'll object to waiting a
I
couple
mean,
weeks.
if you, I'm sorry, maybe I didn't articulate. I just wanted to bring to the public's attention and the court's attention, you have full authority to be able to do what you need to do if you want to do that. And the only thing that it'll affect is the amount of excess fees that come back to the fiscal court.
Correct. I don't think we can set the treasurer's, employee pay, so that was the reason I didn't include, or the clerks, I'm sorry. The clerk's pay, that's the reason I didn't include them. I don't think we can set the sheriff's department pay, didn't include them for that reason either, because
Just don't forget our staff with the department. Not the sheriff's.
Okay, I think we're back to,
wasn't that I didn't want them to have it, I can't set it, so.
I appreciate that.
I think we're back to an established motion and second, I believe.
Yes.
Does everyone understand what we're voting on?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, item 22 would be consider an order approving a salary increase for Assistant Treasurer, Director of Finance, Amanda Sperling. And if I followed you all right, well, let's see. If I followed you all right, then this motion could be amended from what's listed in the order. Is that right, Greg?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
She did get the 6.2, correct.
Judge, are we on 22?
I'm sorry?
Are we on 22 now?
Yes, yes, I'll accept the motion. I just need to ask one question to the treasurer.
Yeah, I would assume that it would just be like for the decreased price of per year. Yeah, because they're not giving me or the finance officer on the 6.2, because we've already got the raise. So if she gets like this one, then it would just be, I'm reducing by the 6.2,
I'm sorry.
whatever that makes sense in there.
Sorry, I had to draw upon Alicia's skill and experience. If we reduce the amount listed in this order by 6.2%, that should basically do the same thing that we did with the other 2 employees that were approved a few weeks ago that are not included on your list, Greg. Is that correct? If we reduce this amount on the
That
order?
is.
Is that? Think about it. Think about it for.
Yeah, think about that for a second.
Alicia and I have been discussing this in the corner.
I think what you're proposing we do is to recalculate Ms. Sperling's pay and increase it by 6.2. And actually, you don't even have to do that. I think what you're
What if we decrease
proposing we
it?
do is we increase her pay from whatever it will be now to $1,900.77 biweekly.
I would offer that motion, Judge, what Magistrate Elkins just said. Somebody's gonna help me arrive at that number.
Yeah, what is that number?
I'll get the number in just a second.
Okay,
I don't even think you need a number, you can just offer to increase it to $1,970.
I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that.
$1,900.77.
would that do it, Alicia, for your payroll? Okay.
And that would be the first payroll in January. Or would that be immediate?
It would have to be after the payroll in January.
That's what I'm thinking.
I would do that, yeah.
That's what,
You really don't even have to change this order, Judge. I think this order effectively does exactly what you're wanting to do. It increases Ms. Sperling's pay to $1,900.77.
We just need to fill in the date.
Okay. The trade,
That's what they're saying, is that we've already changed it now, so this one, I would change it to the new amount.
the new amount, okay. I understand,
We
Magistrate.
just want it effective on the date of the January, whatever that pay period is. Yep,
Yes.
So would this be?
instead of the effective.
That's what you're voting on to raise.
Whatever.
Right now.
We just
First
raised
pay
it to
period in
probably
January.
$1,850 per biweekly, but he's saying
First
we
pay
raised it
period.
to $1,900 because of the increase in duties.
Okay. Magistrate Elkins, is that a motion?
I thought Travis made it.
Yeah, I offered up the motion.
Travis made it.
Travis
We just need
made-
a second.
And Magistrate Elkins supplied the verbiage. That's what you call teamwork.
That's exactly right.
Okay, so the motion is to approve this order with the changes noted. Will the court accept that?
Judge, I don't know that there will be any changes.
That's right,
Right, it's just.
just the
The
effective date.
The effective date.
Except the effective date, that's exactly
Exactly.
right.
It's just to fill in the blank.
Fill in the blank on the effective date.
And I
Okay.
would agree the same effective date that we were discussing in January.
Exactly.
And we will
That-
come up with that
That
effective
would,
date.
that would be, well, I would say the first payroll in January.
January 5th is that first, date of the pay period.
January 5th.
That would
okay.
be my motion.
So the
January, okay,
Yeah.
that's,
current, with the current 6.2 that she just got, is the 1850, is that right?
I don't know. I can tell you though. Well, no, I don't.
She's on the other sheet we didn't have.
I've got it.
Oh, you
Hang
found
on,
it,
yep. It raises her from 1634.62 biweekly to 1735.97 biweekly, and the judge's order would increase it further to $1,900.77 biweekly.
Okay.
So it would be an increase from 1735.97 biweekly to 1,977 biweekly. Make sense?
it does.
Thank you,
And thank
Magistrate
you.
Elkins.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Very
'Cause-
welcome.
And that's the motion offered by Magistrate Thompson. So we're looking for a second.
Second.
Second by Magistrate Blanton. Any discussion?
And you're proposing this increase because of,
Her job duties, her education and skill level and performance. She's been here with us 3 months,
She's been here for 5 months.
5 months, excuse me. I lost a month or
Sorry.
two.
They always decide on the months. Can I have a little bit of time to explain if anybody needs?
No objection? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so, based on the last, meeting that we had that I explained, ARPA funding, Amanda will be a vital part of the reporting process. She will help me do all of the stuff that you all request for the spending of the ARPA funds. So she is a vital part of that. She has also became a vital part of making sure that we segregate our duties because of the audit. We get dinged on that all the time, and she has been a vital part of making sure that we are segregating those duties, and that should not be a comment in future audits past the 2022 or the 2021 audit. She has passed the assistant treasurer position has been more of a in the absence of the treasurer. She takes on a daily role to be my assistant in that. She does reporting, she does daily depositing, and is a big role in that of the daily functions of the treasurer's office, as well as the director of finance of a portion that she does all by herself. And if you see the amount of checks that she brings in on a daily basis, it is a lot. So I need her, and I don't want to request her to do additional functions with ARPA funding without appropriately paying her for the skills that I need her to do. So that is my request.
Okay, any questions for Alicia?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the floor is still open, magistrates, for discussion, comments with regard to this matter of business.
It's about an additional 11% increase, if I calculate that correctly.
Okay.
Well, it's a difficult issue because, I think we all wanted to give raises, and we just did to the tune of 6.2%, which I thought was very fair. I no doubt Ms. Sperling's very qualified, I'm sure, and is doing a good job, but, she's only been with us 5 months, and I know when we considered the treasurer's raise a few weeks ago, Alicia had been with us by that point over a year. And in addition to doing the additional, she's going to be overseeing the ARPA distributions and accounting, and I know Ms. Sperling's going to be involved clearly to some extent with that too, but I tend to think the 6.2% that we just gave her and the other employees, I think was very fair, and in addition to whatever this court may want to do with ARPA going forward. So I'm going to have to reluctantly oppose this motion, and but I understand both sides of the argument for sure. So.
Okay, other discussion?
I think that we've shown that she's taken on some additional duties or is getting ready to. I agree that she's only been here for 5 months. The finance officer, Mr. Caskey, had only been here for 5 months when we gave him a raise a few weeks ago as well. And I would also submit to you that she carries on 2 roles. She is the assistant treasurer and director of finance. So the 6.2% I don't think had anything to do with additional duties. That was just a raise across the board for county employees, regardless of additional duties or experience or anything else. So I think this is deserving, and I'm going to support it.
I would say that the way it came about, not intentionally to be sure, but in a way, you can't say it would negate the 6.2, but had this increase happened a month ago, she would have been eligible for 6.2 on top of this. So this is truly giving her an increase, more than 6.2, but I don't know how to say that best to make it where it makes sense, but it's not giving her 2 increases in one day. It's just giving her a bump and then moving her in even
It's essentially
further.
the same thing as we did with him because we removed him from the 6.2. So it's
That's
essentially
correct.
the same thing, just the way it fell on the agenda. That's how we did
Same
it.
thing we did with
Same
Alicia,
thing.
same thing we did with Eric, so, yeah.
I think when she was hired, and correct me if I'm wrong, was she hired in with both positions?
Yes.
Assistant treasurer, director of finance. So I guess the one distinguishing point is that Mr. Caskey was hired in at a pay rate for one position. He then essentially inherited a second position, or was granted a second position with additional duties. Therefore, his pay was bumped to accommodate both those. I think when Ms. Sperling was hired, she came in with the expectation she's going to be doing the duties of 2 roles, and she has been. So I think that's, again, maybe splitting hairs, but I think there is a difference there. One person hired in doing 2 positions at a set pay rate. Another person got one after he'd started. Again, that's how I would distinguish those. But again, I understand both sides. It's, we want to always try to do right by our folks. And
One question
sorry,
you done?
No, I am.
One question I failed to answer, Alicia. Can you do this within your current budget? You indicated to me yesterday that you could.
You can, yes.
She indicated to me, and I'll be very frank, she said she had excess money that was put into the payroll processing. I don't know if that's the exact title, but the payroll processing account, because there was an anticipation that we may switch payroll companies and have an increase. We didn't switch payroll companies. We made the decision to stay with the one that we have. There's $10,000 extra in that account that she doesn't need, and with the transfer within her part of the budget, she can cover this within the current budget, and it wouldn't expend any additional money.
Call for the question, Judge.
Okay. Ready for the question? Everybody knows the stated motion? Okay. You want to do a roll call? Okay. I'm going to ask the clerk to do a roll call vote so we can be clear.
So
Magistrate Graham,
I'm gonna vote in favor of it.
Thompson,
Yes.
Constantopoulos,
not of the extra duties, I'll vote yes.
Blanton,
Yes.
Davis,
No.
Elkins,
Yes.
Judge,
Yes. So
61
motion carries. Thank you all.
I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for speaking up, Alicia. You work the closest with us. Okay, now, Travis, this is the one you need to recuse from discussion and action.
Yes, sir.
Michelle, you will note that. Okay. The next item would be consider, this would be approving a status change. Let me look and see. She's going from the interim position that was assigned to her back in spring of 2020, I think, to the permanent position now. With an increase in pay as well that is provided by her federal budget. In fact, it doesn't utilize all the funds of the federal budget. I think we could go up to $25 an hour, I believe, Perry, of the federal money that we're leaving on the table right now. So it doesn't exhaust all of that money that was in the federal budget, but it does increase. And I know that Perry works a lot with our EMA director, or our fire chief / EMA director. And Steve, you and I have had conversations, when I started exploring this, because it happened before I came on. Would you like to say anything on Perry's behalf, or?
Sir, I can say that we did have these discussions during budget negotiations at the beginning of the last budget. And also, Perry's a big help to me. I won't lie. She's the glue, sir. I'm overburdened, I will say it. I have a lot of additional duties, but Perry is the one who keeps that office up there going. Without her, I could not do my job as the fire chief nor emergency management director. That is correct.
And I think Perry used to have a halftime person that worked with you for a while. That person is now gone. So you did assume any duties that person did for this point in time. Okay.
So are we never gonna hire any additional help?
I think we should seek to hire. I mean, we're leaving federal money on the table. Even with this increase in pay, we're still gonna be leaving a halftime plus on the table. So I think we should be looking for a part-time person to assist. And Chief, I think that would help you as well if Perry had a part-time person to help.
Yes, sir.
So we can start searching for that, can't we, Perry? That person?
So with that, if we are having a part-time person, the temporary extra duties are temporary.
No, she still has to perform additional duties with regard, I think she even performs a certain amount of EMA.
She performs additional duties on both sides of the house, sir. She performs additional duties by Chuck not being there. Chuck was also emergency management, and he was CSEP local. So we have absorbed that whole building between the two of us, plus the fire department. So, that's a discussion for you all, but you have two people doing the job of however many people we had prior to.
Well, we had
if we go back,
we had Gary, Perry, and Chuck. And now we just got Perry.
Well, you got.
Well, his
Steve Asbury.
Well, his is EMA only.
Yeah.
Has any effort been made to hire an additional?
It has not, but
employee?
we would like to make an effort on the CSEP part.
I would like an effort on the EMA part.
I thought you might bring that up. Also, I'm sorry, go ahead, Daniel.
What's the percentage difference, Magistrate Elkins? I know you've got it probably already calculated over there.
I don't, because I think that, I'm looking for it, In the spreadsheet that I was given, Perry was given to me as a bi-weekly employee. And on the order, it lists her as an hourly employee, so I'm a bit confused. That's what I was looking for. My email spreadsheet lists her as being paid $16.16 bi-weekly, but this says we're wanting to increase her to $22.80 per hour. I can't calculate it.
She's an 80-hour employee? Is that right?
So
Perry?
this would be taking her to 1824 gross, right? On a bi-weekly, at 22.80 an hour, this order?
Hired in November of 2020 was rather a dubious verbiage. It stated that I was a salaried employee paid at the hour rate up. So it actually went both ways. It was a dubious verbiage order that was entered as hired in November of 2020.
Are you paid on 2,080 hours a year? Is that correct, Perry? So I can take the 2280 times 2,080 and get what this?
Work 8-hour days.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Perry.
I get recognized for 8-hour days. I work far more than 8 hours.
As do most salaried employees, I think.
You're paid on 20.
2080, 2080.
I think, man, it said 2280.
That's 2080. 2080.
Yes.
28.
The new rate, though, the proposed rate is 22.80 in
Yeah, that's
the
so
order,
much.
proposed order.
2080 is hours, not salary.
No, when I said 22.80, I meant
Okay.
this. The
So-
proposed
He
rate
was
of
talking
pay.
hours. Yeah.
I thought it said hour, 22 hours.
Yeah.
Okay, the floor is still open for a motion.
It is funny enough, 6.2% on top of the 6.2%.
Is that right? Now, Greg, we did not do that on purpose.
Funny enough.
I'm not smart enough to do it on purpose.
So it's really less of an increase above what we gave, than what we just did. So-
And this is reimbursed through the federal government.
And this
This
one is
is
reimbursed.
87.5%.
87.5%.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor.
I'll second.
By Magistrate Blanton and a second by Magistrate Elkins. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, we record a 6-1. The motion is 5-1.
5 to 1 abstention.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I stand corrected. 5-1 motion. Okay, Magistrate, there's a couple of items I need to address with you that are laying in front of you. One of them is our November and December anniversaries that we did not note in the minutes, and I'm assuming you all got that. So I'm gonna ask the county clerk to note that in the minutes.
sorry.
That's just the pay increase.
Oh, okay, yes, yes. I'm sorry.
The next one is an order that the jailer Doyle, hello Jailer Doyle, he's here with us too, and Ernie, asked me to prepare it. I asked the county attorney to prepare an order. It's to surplus a 2005 Chevrolet truck that we're hoping we can trade in and replace it with and this is a commissary vehicle, right? And the new vehicle he buys would be out of commissary money. So this motion would be to surplus this truck.
So moved.
Motion by Magistrate Elkins,
Second.
second by Magistrate Thompson. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Alrighty. Now, you'll have some quotes there from Thermal Equipment and a company called HMC. And I want to thank Alan for securing these for the court. He met with these folks, and the issue we've got, and you all may or may not know, is in the circuit court room, the big courtroom upstairs, the heater's completely gone. When we had, and Alan, you correct me if I'm wrong when I'm explaining this, when the technician came, it's basically rusted out, and it's
Beyond repair.
way beyond repair.
More repair.
There's a number
number on there, so.
Okay. So, according to our administrative code, we sought two proposals, and you can see one from Thermal and one from HMC. The one from Thermal is less, a little bit less, but Alan is perfectly comfortable with them doing the installation, and I don't know a lot about HVAC, but I concur with him.
Thermal is the company that did our boiler here, correct?
Is this eligible for reimbursement through AOC?
We will go to AOC, and since it is in the state part.
Yeah.
And we hope for at least the normal reimbursement of
44%?
47%.
So it may end up costing us less.
Yeah, it may end up costing us less, but we'll have to pay the old amount, the whole amount.
Okay, yeah.
They appear to be very competitive bids.
I'll make a motion that we accept the
Thermal.
thermal equipment, yeah.
Second.
We have a motion by Magistrate Constantopoulos and a second by Magistrate Davis, and the thermal amount is $19,444.44. Any discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And the fourth set of documents is the jail report, the monthly jail report. And if you all have any questions on that.
On the back, just for everybody's knowledge, because Magistrate Graham asked me about it, that's a new piece of paper that the jailer started including on this that shows when he had to take an inmate, or someone from the jail had to take an inmate to a medical facility, and how many hours of overtime they spent with that. And that's always going to be overtime because he can never pull anybody from the jail. He always has to call somebody in to do that, so.
Okay, anything else? Okay. We have no closed session items, so we'll go on, move on down to magistrate comments. Yes,
Would the court allow me to speak for just a moment?
without objection? It's
Sure.
a regular meeting.
The reason I didn't speak before was because I wanted to see how the increases played out, but I have a special request for you all, if you would entertain that.
Okay, come on up, Adriana.
Thank you all.
Okay.
So I mean, the only way to put it, I'm really in a pickle. So I have one animal control officer. The second position is vacant, was vacant for several months. We hired somebody, they were with us for about a month, and then they left sight unseen. I still haven't been able to speak with them. So we've been advertising again. I have received zero interest in the position. In the original proposal that I'd asked you all for, to increase that starting pay to $17. And I really feel like in order to get someone that is capable and qualified, that's what we have to have for that position. The current animal control officer that I have is experiencing some pretty serious medical issues right now, and he has been out a lot. Last week, my daughter broke her arm and had to have emergency surgery. I know Travis and Robert know about that ordeal. And I was at UK with her, and we had nobody to cover the county. I will brag on the sheriff's department and the police department and dispatch because they were amazing, and I was able to work through some situations with them over the phone and answer questions for some of the deputies, and they were very understanding and helpful, and I appreciate them so much. But I don't want to put the community in that position where there's not somebody available when there's a need. And I am asking you all to please consider, and honestly, I intended to come to you with this request before, really at the last court meeting. It was my plan. It was very last minute when all this kind of happened, and I just didn't make it here for that meeting. And then there was the intent of the special called meeting, and I thought that would be perfect, and so then here we are today. So I intended to ask you all for this before any of the across-the-board asks came about. So I am asking you all to please consider that increase for that particular position. It would be 2 employees, the existing employee, and then increasing the starting salary for the incoming employee if we're able to find someone. It should have an increase or a total impact on my budget this year of about $4,800. I don't know what the difference would be factoring in the 6.2 that's going to affect everybody, so it would be a little bit less than that. But I really think it would, help us find someone that is capable and qualified to fill that position that hopefully we can bring on long-term.
What are you currently advertising it for?
$14.84.
So we just changed that, correct?
Yeah, to,
I believe it's like $15.76. I did the math sitting back there.
1424?
$14.84.
84.
1576.
And, honestly, people can go do the exact same job in Lexington and make what I make, as a supervisor. So, and there's not any other comparable jobs within our own community to consider what those folks are making. But we ask these folks to be on call 24/7. We do it on a rotating schedule since there are two employees that fill that, but they're on call. They're assisting the law enforcement. They're, going out in places that nobody else wants to go. And they have to be familiar with laws and be able to enforce those and comprehend and understand them and explain them to people that don't know them. So it's more than just being a dog catcher. We're asking more of those folks than just going out and picking up stray dogs. So I would just really appreciate if you all would entertain that.
Okay. Thank you, Adrian.
Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you.
Addie, I assume you're wanting to bump the current one.
Yeah, that's what she said.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I heard that right.
And I'm trying to think of, if this is the court's pleasure, how we address this procedurally. I'm assuming we would have an order prepared for the existing employee, and then when we hire, we would take that into consideration, the 17 instead of the 1484. And then when we look at the compensation plan, that you're asking that the Magistrate Elkins had indicated that we look at increasing all our positions by 6.2, but in this case, you would want to look at doing that one. Go to the 17, okay. Okay. So that's kind of what we're looking at. So the floor is open if y'all want to comment.
so at the 6.2, the starting pay would be what,
76.
1576.
Where are you at in your budget, Addie? Do you think you can handle this, or do you think you're going to exceed? I know you said it's going to cost you $4,800, but
Yeah,
with the vacancies, are you going to be able to absorb it?
probably, in all honesty. If I kept everybody that I have right now and hired somebody today at that, I'm looking at about $4,800. But, chances are we're gonna move around a little bit. We have several part-timers that don't always work their full number of hours.
And you're under budget anyway to start with.
Exactly. And honestly, the budget that I'm working off of, my number of hours within my people, because we have so many part-timers, it moves around enough that I actually was under budget if everybody worked their full number of hours from where we started, so,
And the 4,800 number you threw out, that's before the 6.2 that we did today, correct?
yes, I don't know what it is.
I
didn't
understand.
have time to figure out the difference with that.
I'll make a motion to approve so we can discuss it formally.
Now, what would be your motion to approve?
Approve the request for the starting and existing employee salary to go to $17.
Okay.
Move the starting pay to $17, and that would include the existing employee at the animal control officer.
Okay. Okay.
Up from $15.76 after we approved the 6.2% earlier.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Magistrate Blanton. Does everyone understand the stated motion? Okay, we'll say, accept that as a yes and ask for a second.
I'll second for discussion.
Okay. Have a second by Magistrate Thompson. The floor is open for discussion.
If at all possible, we really need to have that comp plan on the next agenda with the changes, because if we wait past that next meeting, it'll all be lost in translation.
Yeah, well, the administrative code has been hanging out there ever since June anyway, and I'd asked the judge when we was gonna approve it, and he said he was anticipating some additional changes, and we never did get those, so yeah, it needs to be done as soon as possible. Exactly.
Want to try to have that for first reading at the next meeting? I'll get with Janet and try to.
If at all, I mean, at least that or the first meeting in January.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's still a couple of job descriptions hanging in the
Yes, some
balance
job
as well.
descriptions and a few other things that we talked about, yeah.
Okay.
January 1 probably, that,
Greg, we'll build in your 6.2 increase on the positions.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the animal shelter salaries, we budgeted 120,000. So far, we spent 44,054, leaves 75,900 remaining. So that said, we have spent 37% and we're 42% through the year. So there is some money left over, but I think the 6.2% increase will eat that up. So
It's gonna be close. If she were fortunate enough to hire, it's gonna be close.
yeah, if she has employees to pay.
Well, that's based on so far this year. So if we hire more, it's gonna eat it up even faster. So I don't think the money's in the budget to do it, without doing some transfers.
Okay.
It's just a quick look.
I agree with you. And I was going off memory.
You can set that down, become effective on a day when the money and the raise reconcile. See what I mean? If the raise costs $100,000, you've got that over it, you can set your effective date.
Yep.
To begin there for those new hires.
To continue using up the entire budget line.
Okay.
That'd be easy enough to calculate.
Okay. Any other discussion? Everyone understand the question?
No, sir.
No?
No, would you repeat it?
Okay.
The motion was to have the starting pay and the current employee's salary, starting salary for the animal shelter control officer would be $17 an hour, up from $15.76.
Effective.
January 5th.
Effective January the 5th.
That suits me, January 5th.
And again, in discussion, I would offer, where would that money come from?
Off the top of your head, do you have other places in your budget to transfer it from?
So on a normal year, I would say absolutely I'll find it. This has been a terrible year in the animal welfare world. So I would love to confidently tell you yes, but we have taken in about 150 more animals than where we had this time last year so far. So I really want to say yes. I can tell you that I will do everything in my power to try to make that happen.
With the increase in starting pay, do you think maybe, because, I mean, we basically did just increase it, do you think maybe that would be helpful in hiring new employees?
As far as just
Pretty
the
significant
6.2,
increase.
Takes you to 1576.
And I fully understand that, and I know that the employees are gonna be appreciative for that, but when you can drive all over town and see $15, $16, $17 an hour in windows and stores and, businesses all over, I mean, we're asking people to do a pretty scrummy job. I mean, it's a tough job for, something they could get paid the same amount to do a lot less. And I think that's where my struggle has been.
Now, trust me, I pick up garbage for a living, so I understand.
But, and people get paid pretty good to pick up garbage in general. But, we, over the years, we've always struggled to hire for this position. And I could fill a body, but to have somebody that's gonna, perform to the standard that I would like for them to and that our community expects, it's tough to find somebody that is passionate enough about it, that can work for such a low wage and, is passionate enough to do a good job at it. And that's my struggle, and trying to find that balance. And finding that perfect person is hard, but if you increase that starting rate, then it opens up your pool a little bit. We're already really limited because we can only hire in county because that person is on call. So we've gotta figure out a way to expand the pool of people that we're pulling from, pulling those applications from. So to answer your question, maybe, but we're in a situation that I really need to hire somebody as quickly as I can. And I really think to find somebody that's gonna commit to it long-term, that we need something in the $17 range.
How long has the position been open now?
Minus the guy that was there for about a month, it's been open since, I'm pretty sure it's the first week of July.
That's what I thought. I knew it was in the summer, I wasn't sure when.
And she had been with me for 6 years, I think, at that point, so, it was a hard loss.
But it's only been open for about 30 minutes at the new starting wage.
It's not been advertised.
Greg, if you want to take calls, we don't have anybody to fill it, I'll be happy to put your phone number out there.
Okay, I think we have a motion and a second, I believe. Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you,
Thank you all
Adriana.
for your help.
Yeah, I think we were moving down to magistrate comments. Joe, you want to start?
Sure. I was just, the ARPA fund thing, I just wanted everybody to consider. I've heard many times we've been approached by some people in our community about this splash park thing. I don't know if that could be something, but I really think they may deserve that. It would be something beneficial to
Well, they can do new.
So, that's all I have.
You don't think it's probably?
Not a, can't. do it.
Elisa said she did not think.
Has to be infrastructure.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
well,
Great idea.
That
but
was
has
a
to be
great idea,
infrastructure.
yeah.
somehow we ought to face that.
That's a good point, Joe, thank you. Anything else?
Nope.
All right. Travis?
Only one thing, Magistrate Blanton brought this up to me. I think we changed the meeting Christmas week to the 21st at 9:30, but he indicated that he couldn't find where we did that. I
Couldn't
just
find
want to
any
make sure
minutes or
that,
anything.
just want to make sure we did.
Well, I couldn't find it either.
He
Just
he
put a
said he
note in
couldn't
the
find
I
it.
just took y'all's word on it.
my calendar.
I thought that Judge Pace did Thanksgiving and Christmas at the same time. I even remember him making the comment that just to streamline it, to do them both together, but I just want to make sure everybody's clear on when the next meeting is.
Let's just
and
put a note in the minutes for today.
If we need to do that, I'm fine to make that motion, the 21st at 9:30 in the morning. I believe that's a Tuesday of Christmas week.
You have a motion by Magistrate Thompson and second by Magistrate Thompson.
And that would also cancel the meeting on the 23rd at 6 p.m.
Okay, all right. Any? Yes,
It would be a special call. I think we've already done that, but just to make sure.
I couldn't find it.
I don't have it in my calendar.
And I didn't get the minutes.
It may not happen, Greg.
It may not have, it may have it, it may not have, but I
It's
certainly
happened
didn't have it in there.
Thank
Any
you,
other?
Judge.
Oh, did you make a motion?
You voted yes, didn't you?
I was gonna second it.
You're too late, Joe.
Okay. Sorry, I was looking at my calendar.
Making sure it worked out, didn't you? All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Travis?
I'm good, Judge, thank you.
Daniel?
Yeah, I've got a couple things, and first thing is I know we just talked about the 6.2% with the sheriff's office, and we're going to have to put money in the budget, but once I was sitting here kind of chewing on that a little bit, they're on a calendar year, we're on a fiscal year, so half of that money is going to come out of this year's budget. So I would like to, that additional 1.2% is going to be roughly right around $13,000. So I'd like to go ahead and offer up a motion to direct the treasurer to put a transfer on the next agenda, allocating $6,500 for the sheriff's increases, which however they need to bill us for it, or however we need to work it.
Do we need to go on and do that, or can it wait until they exhaust their
They need it.
entire, like, line items that are already set there?
Good idea.
Well, I'm sure he's already going to exhaust them. I mean, I just want to I just wanted the court to know that we're committed to it.
I appreciate that,
and
Dan.
we're committed to doing it. And so I would, if we could, I would just like to go ahead and put that additional 65, just so it lets the sheriff know that we're committed to doing it.
I can do that.
I'll second that motion. Thank you, sir.
You have a motion by Magistrate Constantopoulos and a second by Magistrate Thompson.
I suppose by approving the transfer now that your thought is he can do the increases whenever he's ready, the money's in his budget to do so.
Well, no, I mean, it'll still be January's when he's gonna do it, because it'll be operating on a new budget, but where he's on a calendar year.
I understand that, but I'm just saying, we're not doing his increases, we're just putting money in his budget
And
so
if
he
he
can
decides,
do
and
them.
if he decides to do them, then
Yeah.
the money's there for him to do.
I don't think that'll be a
Yeah,
question.
I mean, the transfer is still gonna come back to the court either way.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I can't
Okay.
approve a transfer.
Yeah,
that's
you're
not
just,
ready.
you're gonna,
Yeah.
I'm just directing you to go ahead and have it prepared for the next meeting.
Gotcha.
Gotcha.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And I've got one final thing is, and I know I had requested this from Judge Branham to put an order on the, this meeting's agenda. In regards to Ms. Faulkner, for the time that she worked here, there was about 8 days before it was brought to the fiscal court's attention for the approvals of compensation. For those 8 days prior to the fiscal court not setting a salary for that position, is I think that we need to pay her for those days. I think that's the fair thing to do. And so I would like to offer up a motion that we pay her for $100 a day for the 8 days that she worked prior to that meeting.
I'll second that.
And this is not by any means setting a salary or anything of that nature. It's just paying her for the time that she worked prior to the fiscal court making its decision.
Can I bring up a question? Is that gonna run through payroll, or is it gonna be as like a 1099, like a contract worker? Cause I don't know how to pay that.
Good question.
I don't know the legalities of that.
Because if it runs like through payroll, it's gonna be retirement and the taxes and all of that stuff. And she didn't agree to work as a 1099, like contract on the labor, so I don't know how to pay that exactly.
I don't think you have any choice but to pay through your payroll. If you had a IRS examination on the subject and they said, well, who set her work hours and who provided the tools and who provided the space, so on and so forth, it'd be clear immediately to them and then to us that she's not a contractor.
So $800, or so $100 a day plus any payroll taxes, fringes, or stuff that you have to pay in, I think is the,
And our participation, if you take retirement system for county employees, would make a mandatory account treatment there too.
So would this, you anticipate this costing $800 or $800 plus?
no, I think that's what we pay her is the $100 per day for 8 days. And then
Whatever
it's gonna
deduction.
cost more than that because of the retirement, the
Retirement contribution.
payroll taxes and everything.
I understand.
Fringe.
But that's automatic, that's gonna be automatic.
That's gonna be automatic increase, yeah. But I mean, for me, I think it's the right thing to do.
No, I
She was here
don't
working, and
disagree. You can't ask
she
someone
needs
to work
be
for
paid
free.
that.
I agree with
Is
that.
this ran with the next payroll, or what's?
Retirement system says we're not doing that for that 8-day period, then you just turn that cash over to her, turn that money over to her. Of course, we're closing out that payroll issue.
But she
The
would
com- the com-
average over the 100 hours in a month, so we wouldn't have to report that to Kentucky on retirement, because she wouldn't technically have worked enough hours to be a participant in the Kentucky on retirement system.
So it
that
just wouldn't be
shouldn't
deducted then?
Cause an issue there
Yeah.
for retirement itself.
So the only additional on top of that $800 would be any, the FICA match and the FICA, and that's pretty much it.
Well, and I know that sounds pretty cut and dried, but we're moving really out of the ordinary here. And I know that most of the things, the fiscal court as a legislative body certainly can approve anything. It could be legal or not legal or anything else. Then it would be challenged at a point in time. But most of the things we do are enabled by state statute. We don't originate anything And that's the reason I didn't answer Daniel, is because I just did not see any way to do it, to make a suggestion. And I don't think we've got anything to stand on to say that we're going to pay an employee $800. It's just way beyond the ordinary. I think we would be challenged beyond measure.
Well, I think we'd be challenged for not paying her for the time that she worked here.
I certainly think we would be challenged for that as well.
So the
But I think the
compensation-
only thing that we're enabled to do, according to 64,530, is to set a reasonable salary.
Well, I'd much rather be challenged on paying somebody for the 8 days that they worked prior to our meeting in consideration of permanent pay, rather than being challenged on having not paid that person at all prior to our court meeting.
Well,
So-
on the surface, that sounds like a good argument, and it may be in, a court of law. But, I'm sitting here trying to decide, when you all bring up matters for consideration, especially if they're under, new business, one of my duties is, do I think it is allowable? And I don't think this is.
So you're suggesting we don't pay her?
No, I'm suggesting, what I would suggest is that we set a salary for the deputy judge executive.
But I don't think that's the question.
Well, yeah, Daniel wants to give her $800 for 8 days, which is,
Judge, I have some discussion, but I think we need a second to get there.
oh, do we not have a second?
I did second.
Oh, did
I think
okay.
you were speaking.
My
with-
apologies, I didn't
yeah.
catch that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Okay. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think the majority of this court has already spoken and said that this, I believe the quote was, nothing above zero is reasonable for this individual. So I don't know why $800 is all of a sudden reasonable. I don't know how we can do this. The salary's set in the budget and this court failed to do it, so.
Well, I think the answer to that is that, this person was obviously appointed by the judge executive, as was his right. My understanding is she did start working in the judge's office. I don't think there's any dispute about that. I don't know what her duties are, which I'm not her supervisor, so it's not for me to say. I understand she was in the courthouse, in the judge's office. She was working prior to us having any say in the matter. It was only 8 days later, or 9 days, whatever it worked out to be, that we actually got to, discuss it on the record and vote as to whether or not we were going to set a permanent rate of pay, which we declined to do. You still have the issue of the 8 days, and I know it's kind of a nuanced issue, but I think anytime we have somebody that works, whether it's in the judge's office or, if by chance this court doesn't approve somebody's appointment or hiring or whatever the case may be, and they leave or depart or are no longer working here, I think we still have the issue of the days that they worked or the time that they worked prior to that court meeting. And I certainly don't want us to be caught, and I understand Daniel's motion, which is not any kind of statement on setting a permanent rate of pay or what she should or should not have been making, but it's just, how do we treat those days prior to the court meeting? And I do think I don't think we can leave that issue open and have somebody, any person, not having been paid for the time they worked. So I think that's the question, and I support, it's a little unusual situation, but I think we still have to address it. Can't have somebody having not been paid for time they worked. So to me, that's what it comes down to, and I support the motion. I seconded it, so.
I agree that those 8 days should not have been left open, but unfortunately, the majority of this court did do that. So I don't know how we address that issue now, but we don't get to pick that person. Only the judge gets to pick that person.
Right.
And we can't deny that person a salary just because we don't like that person, in my opinion. And I think that's clearly stated in statute. So I don't know how we could possibly pay her $800 for 8 days of work.
My vote wasn't because I didn't like the person. I do like the person, but I did set what I thought was a reasonable salary. I do think, though, that we do have to pay someone for the days they work. I think that the unusual circumstance was created by hiring through executive order or emergency order. I don't necessarily think that the position was an emergency field and didn't need to be hired that way. But as it was, and then no salary was set, I do think we have an obligation to at least pay that person while they were here. So I'm going to reject any thoughts that we should not pay her. I'm going to come down on the side of paying her for what she was here and what she did work.
What was the reasonable salary that you set?
We did not.
Oh, I thought you said a reasonable salary for that person.
Well, we
did not.
Yeah,
did
well, I
not
mean,
set a reasonable salary.
Yeah, we did.
We did not set a salary, that's
okay.
correct.
It was 0 is what it was.
Zero.
But I think the statute requires us to set a reasonable salary.
It does.
The way I read the statute.
What is reasonable?
What is reasonable?
I don't know how you can argue against what's set in the budget.
That's not what we're debating now, though. We're debating whether we're gonna pay her $800.
And I will say again, you know, and I would defer to the county attorney, I would caution you all for paying someone $800 and establishing them as an employee. I mean,
You established her as an employee.
well, yes, I did. And if you all set her a salary, I will certainly pay her for those 8 days.
I think one can make the argument that if she was worth $800 for those 8 days, that she continues to be worth $800 for those days. Because as we sit here right now, she is our deputy judge executive.
I just, you know, just because, you know, this court was removed from the jurisprudence system in 1976 or so, you know, we can't see and determine how things will be litigated. We can certainly speculate. But I think, you know, the statutes are fairly clear that enable us to do certain things. You know, for example, if we wanted to hire a road department employee, Alan would come to the judge would make the recommendation, the fiscal court would ratify it. See, and we can't vary. What I'm trying to tell you is we have to be enabled to do things. We're enabled to paint the courthouse or buy voting machines or anything by you know, KRS 68 that talks about our financial administration. You understand where I'm coming from, Greg?
I do. Sometimes, though, Judge,
I just think
say,
what we're doing is we're jumping up and doing something that's just, that we're not allowed to do.
Let me ask the question this way. What prevents the judge from instructing the treasurer to pay her $100 a day for every day that she works from this point forward?
Because his motion is limited to those 8 days prior to our
I disagree. She's still our deputy judge as we sit here right now. He just sent her home because you all refused to pay her.
Well, I mean, payment has to be authorized by this court. I think we're all in agreement of that.
The county treasurer will tell you that.
So I don't think.
I don't disagree with that either. I'm
No,
just
wait.
asking what prevents him from paying her from
He'd
this
be
point
breaking the
forward.
law.
So are we setting the reasonable salary at $100 a day? Is that what we're doing?
We are
I'm very clear.
we're paying somebody for 8 days that they worked prior to our fiscal court meeting where this was the first time we had an opportunity to consider paying her anything. Okay, so you're only looking at 8 days. You may not like it. You may not like the outcome of that meeting, but that's what we're faced with. And with that, I'll call the question.
Okay, before you call the question, I'm gonna offer up a motion myself as a member of the fiscal court. And it would be a motion that takes precedent. I make a motion that we table this matter until the first fiscal court meeting in January and ask our county attorney to investigate whether there is an enabling Kentucky revised statute that would allow a fiscal court in the Commonwealth of Kentucky to pay such a thing and establish a chattel of employment, so to speak, all in one. You know, there's certain things that county governments are enabled to do. So my motion would be to table this till the first meeting in January and ask the county attorney to explore the basis on which we make this motion in second.
does the question being called not take precedent?
No,
Okay,
the motion to table takes precedent.
I'll second your motion, Judge. I think that's fair.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to table. Any discussion?
Is there,
That's what I'm asking for is a legal opinion as to how we can pay her for 8 days.
Yeah, don't
And
jump in.
She's still the deputy judge, but yet we don't pay her any further than those 8 days, because I don't know how that works. So I'm not saying that it can't work, I just would like a legal explanation. So I think that would help answer my question.
And there's no urgency on it anyway to act today, I don't think.
Well, but I think Magistrate Constantopoulos' motion is not to make an illegal payment. I think it should be understood that if the payment's illegal, we don't make it. I mean, we're not authorizing this court to do anything illegal.
But who determines that illegal, whether it's legal
Who's
or
going to
not?
determine between now and January?
Well, I'm going to ask the county attorney to investigate.
There you go.
do you have an opinion, County Attorney?
I do have an opinion. I'm glad you asked me. I mean, here's the reality.
The Kentucky legislature didn't accidentally divide the powers here. It gave the judge executive the power to appoint, but it put the purse strings in the hands of the fiscal court. That way, as I said at that original meeting, the judge gets to come with someone who the court will pay a sufficient amount of money that they will entertain occupying the position. It didn't have to be zero. It could have been $2 an hour. Probably the same result. Most people wouldn't work for that, just below minimum wage. It could have been $7.50. Most people probably wouldn't do that job for that. So I don't think anybody could suggest that the judge could appoint somebody that would relieve the fiscal court of its ability to control the purse strings. That's not what the statute says. The statute says that he gets to appoint, but they get to determine a reasonable pay. And there may be some reasonable pay different for someone of Ms. Faulkner's quality and character. No doubt people would support that idea. But you could suppose for a second, not that Judge Branham would ever do it, but you could suppose for a second that he went over to one of our state mental hospitals and brought someone in here who was only capable of blinking to respond to your answer, do you understand me, and suggest that this court should pay them. That's absurd. The court have no obligation to set a salary for that person. So the legislature never intended that there be a reasonable salary for everybody. But where there's a reasonable salary, you're required to set one. So far, that's still a subject of debate. On the issue of appointment, there is a Kentucky Supreme Court case almost on point. Trouble with the law is it never addresses the exact circumstance that you need to look at. It just addresses some circumstance. In this particular case, and I haven't looked at this case in a couple of years, so I'm going to get the broad points, but I might miss the nuance. The idea under Kentucky statutes that the judge executive can appoint someone subject to fiscal court approval allows Judge Branham, as he sits today, to appoint somebody to work in his office, the road department, the fire department, or any other place, and then bring it before the court for approval. And so we talk a lot in here about retroactive appointments and retroactive pay and that sort of stuff. That's really a fiction that we've created in this room. The reality is that when he appoints somebody, they're appointed. And then there's an obligation to pay them. And that obligation to pay them is met in this room when we approve an order to hire them and pay them X number of dollars. That's where we address the purse string issue. And that's the same problem that we have here. It's a little different in that he gets to appoint without your approval, but he still has to see you about the money. So there is a Supreme Court case on this issue, and I think the issue will come down in favor of the fact that he had the right to appoint, but you have the absolute right to set the salary. So I personally don't see anybody in the future substituting their judgment for your elected judgment by the constituents of this county in these 6 districts, deciding for you or for them what that salary should have been. That's what you were elected to do. And so far, it looks like you've done it. So back to paying Ms. Faulkner for the time that she was with the county, I think we have an obligation to pay people that perform services, whether they do it by contract or employment for the county. And I think Ms. Faulkner is in one of those categories of people. As I suggested earlier, if the IRS was examining the situation, we provided the tools, we provided the location, and probably set the hours. And so their inquiry would result in a finding that she was our employee and not a contractor for 1099 purposes. So I suspect that the proper thing to do is to treat her as an employee for the period of time that she's here. And as I understood Magistrate Constantopoulos' motion, that he wasn't intending to set some reasonable level of pay, but it was a pay that was above what we're required to pay, and that's minimum pay, minimum wage, and it covered the period of time that she's employed. So just my legal opinion would be that it was a proper motion.
Okay, we have the motion on the floor to table. Any other discussion? All those, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, I can't support the table, and I think we need to address it, so.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
And those opposed?
No.
No.
Well, you know, guarantee you know. All right, then the original motion was to, Daniel, I'll let you restate that.
Was to pay Ms. Faulkner for the 8 days that she worked prior to the fiscal court setting a reasonable salary of $100 per day. Is that proper, you think, for motion wise, or do I need to be more elaborate on it?
No, I think it's suffices, that's your intent.
Okay, that's the motion?
And let's, the problem, the issue was created by not setting the salary before the appointment was made and hiring was done, and I would.
Or at the time of?
I would encourage it, except for emergencies, that we don't do it in that order in the future.
Well, I would tend to disagree because the budget amount was already approved, so the salary was set.
But just because it's in the budget doesn't mean it's approved to spend. But I won't, that's not for here nor there. I think the question actually was called, so.
It is, so, yeah, we'll do roll call. No more discussion, we'll do a roll call vote.
Manager Thompson?
No.
Manager Constantopoulos?
Yes.
Blanton?
No.
Davis?
Yes.
Elkins?
Yes.
Judge?
No.
No, Graham, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
And Judge?
No. Okay, motion carries 4-3. All right, Daniel, do you have anything
I've
else?
got nothing else, thank you.
Robert?
Just two old things, I believe, really is all I've got. Look at my notes here. At our last regular meeting, we discussed the annex building, and quite frankly, I was trying to find some architectural drawings from 89 and 90 when they were done to make coming up with some specs a bit easier. I hadn't had any luck with that. I went back to the original architect, but it's winter time now, so we can't do any painting and cleaning anyway, so I will put that on my radar here for the near future to try to come up with some specs for doing the building. And but there's no sense in me spending my time on that if the court isn't at least partially agreeable to spending money to clean the building. And while we're doing that, we might as well paint the trim and fix the gutters. So I just need some kind of consensus before I spend several hours trying to come up with specs. Is that something we want to do, yes or no? Do we need to clean it? Do we need to paint it while we're cleaning it? If you're not willing to spend, well, it's going to be expensive. I won't do it. But if it's the consensus of the court to proceed to make the annex building look presentable, I'll proceed to try to come up with some specs so we can bid it, but it's not going to be cheap. So,
It's a yes for me.
what's the pleasure of the court? You want me to spend my time to come up with that, and will we approve a bid to do it?
I think we look at it, then.
Well, now, I want more than we'll look at it, because I'm going to spend time doing it.
Let me finish what I was gonna say. I'm all for it. Then we're gonna be discussing where the money's gonna come from, the line items, and I think the money's gonna be there, but I'm fine with moving ahead with it. I appreciate your time on it.
Yeah, I appreciate your time on it, and I'll support it.
I'll support it, Robert.
Okay, well, I'll try to come up with some specs between now and when spring breaks.
Okay.
And the other thing, and you all had asked for some sort of drawing on what we're proposing for the bill, and I think Alan emailed you all what he had sketched up for that $8,800 to do that. I was prepared at the last meeting to discuss it, but it was a special meeting, couldn't do it, so I'd like some sort of approval to go ahead so we can get the base of the bill done. I think Alex across the street's almost done with cleaning it, so do you have anything to add to what you sent out before, Alan, on the base of the bill?
I mean, we're just gonna have to try to get them scheduled. Masons for this time of year, everybody's trying to hurry and finish up projects. You get too far in the winter, you don't wanna be tackling it then, water lines cracking and everything.
So what do we need, Robert?
We need approval to move forward. We've talked about this since the summertime, actually when Joe Barnes wanted to build a bigger structure, but I think I kept the court advised as to what we had proposed back in the summer, and Alan finally got us some numbers, and We're trying to make it match the courthouse as best we can, place to put the bell, but if you don't want to do it, we'll forget it as well. But this is going to take $8,800. And maybe just a touch more, because we'll have to have a little plaque made, but
Yeah. I would say if you could get an approval sometime over the next month or two, this would be a spring project. But, you know, you've got to order.
yeah, I know.
Here and the bricks, that'll take weeks, everything's going back.
Yeah. Well, I'll make a motion that we spend the,
Up to 8,800,
for the base of the bell.
I'd ask for 10, just to be safe.
10,000.
Thank you, Al.
That's at least a month over price.
Okay, yeah, it is, you're right, it is.
By the time you factor in spring, with the inflation, let's raise everybody's, I just want to be safe. I hate to come back and say, hey, I need an extra.
Thank you, Al.
The motion would be to pursue a project for the base for the bell up to $10,000. And second by Magistrate Davis. Did you get that, Michelle?
Base.
Is it the base of the
It's
bell?
it's a masonry base to set the bell on.
Masonry
It's called bell display now.
Yeah, well, that's fine,
base.
yeah.
Bell display. Okay, any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Al. I believe that's all I've got, Judge.
Thank you,
Chris?
Robert.
Thank you, Judge. I do have one issue, and again, I know we're 2.5 hours into the meeting, but I really wanted to bring it up before the end of the year, and I know our next meeting is a special meeting. But we've discussed off and on the ARPA funds, and I know I assume we'll be having maybe a workshop or maybe more than one in the future regarding the bulk of that money. But I would like for us to consider doing something for the employees now. You know, we've got folks that have worked through COVID now for 20-plus months or whatever it is now. I know it's over a year and a half, and really haven't, you know, other than the raises we just did, which were really a result of inflation, I don't think we've been recognized. And I say that for a couple of reasons. You know, first of all, the obvious that COVID, you know, posed to everybody, regardless of age, and we had people that worked right through that because they had to, and county government had to keep going. And I know the additional responsibilities of cleaning and sanitation and, you know, the mandates with quarantining and isolation and all that. So for those reasons, I'd like for us to consider something today to do something. And I would, my caveat is I'm certainly open to more discussion later on for the remainder of this money. But I know we've got other things like infrastructure, and, you know, I'm sure the Chief Asbury would have things he'd like to bring to us. I haven't talked with him yet, but I would like this to be for our county employees. And my thought, and I'll put it in the form of a motion, would be to do, at this time, I guess the premium pay, which I would recognize as $100 per month for the last 20 months for all of our county employees through today's meeting, so 20 months until today's date. Though that would be a total of up to $2,000 per employee. Now, obviously, if an employee's only been with us 6 months, and he or she would just get $600, 3 months, get $300. If they've been with us the full 20 months, then they would get a full $2,000. I don't know if that's allowed.
Some questions.
Okay.
Okay, can it be through yesterday, because that would have been
Absolutely.
the end of a pay period?
Absolutely.
What if they were here for a part of a month? At what point of the month are you gonna say that they weren't here for that month? Because like, from my instance, I started on September, I'm the 9th. So I wasn't here for like half the month. If you said, if they started like, if they were here like before the 15th, if that would be a month.
I think
Is it
that'd be
just
fine.
if they worked in that month? Because we have some part-timers.
Let's say if they worked in that month.
Okay.
That'd make it easier on
So
you,
many
wouldn't it?
questions.
Make it easier on you, wouldn't it?
Okay, and what are we considering other county employees? Or who are we considering?
Well, I would first, my motion would certainly recognize all the employees that were listed in our raise that we just did, our county employees that are part of our budget. So everybody that was subject to the 6.2% bump we just did in Magistrate Elkins' motion. But let me say, and I'm open to other magistrates' suggestions as to other departments, constitutional officers, and so forth. But I would certainly like to, at the very least, get this approved for the employees in our budget. So,
I think you have to, if you do it, I think you have to include the sheriff's
Absolutely.
office, the jail,
The
the
jail,
jail's office,
sheriff's office.
and the clerk's office, because they were out there, especially the jail was
Yeah,
cooped
right.
up with, the sheriff's office is out there, and I know you all still have.
well, and I know Michelle opened her office earlier.
We never closed.
You never closed, and you actually opened the public earlier than all of other
Yes, we
offices
did.
did. So
And my
I,
staff worked, and we turned
they
in a
did.
lot of money too.
And I'm in that office quite a bit, so I know how hard they all work. But I'd be fine with including jail, sheriff, and county clerk's offices in that.
And I
Absolutely.
think you got the coroner's office,
Mhm.
you got the county attorney's office.
Right.
You got, I think that's everybody, is it not?
Yeah.
I'm the finance officer and myself, we're not included on the 6.2% because of our previous raise. Are we included?
You'd be included on
Yeah,
this.
this is,
I was like, I just want to make sure because you said on the ones that were
no,
the 6.2.
I think this would
It'd
be,
be everybody essentially, but elected
everybody is what
officials.
you're saying.
Is that part-time employees as well?
Is this every, and, you know, and I see where Alicia's going, because I've been a county treasurer, this is somewhat ambiguous. It's a good thought, a great thought. So are we starting at January 2020 through 12/7 of 21? Is that what the stated motion is?
ARPA allows us to go back to January the 27th, I think, so maybe starting like February of
February.
2020.
Yeah.
And they also encourage that everything is by order. So I don't know that we want to do, either we want to do something by a motion instead of by.
Maybe we should have an order prepared for the next court meeting. Would that-
If you don't mind putting it on the agenda
Okay.
for next.
Because it's a special
next
call,
meeting.
and so it needs to make sure
And-
it's on the agenda.
And will this include part,
Hold on, William saying something.
I just say the governor declared a state of emergency on March 5th, 2020.
So maybe we run it from March 5th.
March 5th.
well, there's ARPA guideline, what,
So January the 27th.
will that comply with, will March 5th, even though we leave out, that's perfectly
It's up to
acceptable?
you all,
Okay.
but as long as it isn't on on the January, on the 27th.
Okay.
In
is all.
theory, there needs to be some, the Kentucky Constitution doesn't allow the payment of a bonus.
That's where I'm going.
So if it's gonna be a premium payment, it has to be in exchange for the extra duties that the employees endured during this period of time. As many of us know, there were a lot of on again, off again schedules, a lot of short staffing, a lot of isolation, a lot of quarantine,
Risk,
a lot of
health risk.
increased health risk. So you should articulate those increased burdens on the employee that he did not agree to work for at his current rate, and then this premium payment is in exchange for those extra duties. Those extra duties could not have occurred before March 5th because the governor had not declared state of emergency in Kentucky, and so those issues didn't exist back then.
So if I get with Alicia, we look at the parameters of this ARPA money, then we make you a list of what we think should be in there, and we can base it on the federal declaration, the actual ARPA legislation, I'm assuming.
Well, as long as you
Does
don't
that get us beyond the bonus issue?
Well, as long as you articulate this extra burden that's being paid for.
Right.
Now, service is already performed.
Exactly.
So it's not in exchange for what they did but did better, but it's in exchange for what they did but had to do more. So take a county clerk employee, for instance. Maybe one employee was out for 14 days on a quarantine, and everybody else in Clerk Turner's office had to absorb the extra duties. That went on countless times throughout county government, and no doubt within the road department and the fire department, and I know certainly within my office and the jail. And there's a good place to start to look. Imagine the extra responsibilities of the deep cleaning and all the personnel movement that was required in the jail that wasn't on the table the day that the deputy jailer was hired. So they endured much more than they were paid for, and the premium payment is to make up for that shortfall in what would have been a fair wage under the circumstances.
Would it be appropriate to go ahead and take that vote today and then have the order later on, or do we need to take the vote and when the order's before
I think
us?
so long as you agree that this is a legislative body. Your orders are in part a finding of what you believe the circumstances are. So, if in this, your legislative action today, you believe the things that we've talked about here were in fact part of our county employee circumstances over that period of time, 20 months essentially, then I think you could take that vote today. And I'll draft you an order to that effect.
Thank you.
So it is not exceed the $2,000, is that the parameters when that was set?
That was my thinking, yes.
Okay.
In part-time employees?
So if they worked in that month?
If they worked in that month, I don't have any objection to a part-time employee.
Okay.
If during that eligible period, they worked and are with us today or as of yesterday, then I don't have a problem. Unless there's an ARPA restriction against it, I don't have any.
Or should it, I'm just asking, or should it be half that amount for a part-time employee?
I got a lot to offer when everybody's done, so.
And it should exclude elected officials.
Yeah, and exclude elected officials.
Well, I think we're
We could
simply
give-
by state statute on the county judge and county.
Just wanted to make sure.
I tried to go here about an hour and a half ago, but nobody was for it then, but now we're for it now, so let's see what we can do. Mine was much more robust than this, and mine was more than, going back 2020 like we're doing, and I agree with starting in March since that's when the pandemic started in Kentucky. I realize federally it started in January, but I would like to see us do this, and I appreciate Magistrate Davis's comments that he might entertain more of this in the future, but I'd like to see us commit to something in the future which incentivizes the employees to stay, knowing that they're going to get a premium pay at some point in time during the year that they stay here. As far as part-time employees were concerned, in my proposal, I was going to do half. So that would be 50 in this instance for what he's proposed. And I talked to Chief Asbury yesterday because he has a significant number of volunteer firefighters that don't work. So if they didn't work in that month, they wouldn't, but there may be a situation where they only worked a little bit. I think the total number of employees that Alicia gave me, estimate, was about 180 if you account for all the part-time folks. And that was with the sheriff and the county clerk, and that was with the county attorney's office. That was the whole caboodle. So my intention today was, if we had that conversation, was to give Alicia some parameters and have her go back and tell us what it costs for the next meeting. And then we could decide, because personally I'd like to know what it costs and how much the ARPA money we'd be using. So my preference would be to have it on the next meeting so that she could give us that number. And she says that she can obtain that information. And I also wanted to do everything that I could to streamline her reporting and make it as easy as possible and not add work to her. So that's my thoughts.
And Chief Asbury, you understand what he said about the volunteers? If someone were on our roster but didn't work in this period, they would receive nothing.
I understand that, sir.
But if someone worked one day, 1 month, they would receive something.
I understand
Okay.
that. We do have part-timers that work during that time.
Okay.
And I was at the commission meeting with Travis last night, and he had brought it up and we discussed it. I feel that they did the same additional duties as the full-time men did. So if they worked during that month, I would like to see them paid for that. Now, you decide at what rate or what percentage, that's for the court to decide. But I believe they're due that if they work, only if they work, not just for them being on the roster. They had to physically work during that. That's my opinion.
I agree with that.
I do think that you have to bear in mind that because the Constitution does forbid bonuses, that there has to be some rational basis to what you do pay. So, not that Chief Asbury was suggesting anything different than what I'll discuss, but so if you had a part-timer and you worked 1 day in a 30-day period and your full-time people worked 24 days, for instance, it would be, I would think, constitutionally ill-advised to pay the part-timer the same amount of money. I think those kind of math allows for a lot of proration. It's easy to divide that money by days worked or by months worked, and I would just suggest that in developing your formula, that you keep that in mind so that we don't wind up looking like we're giving somebody a gift.
Right. Michelle, you had?
I did. I was just going to ask. I just had a one that retired in October. Now, she's no longer here, but she did work.
Can't go back.
That's what I want clarification.
Can't go back.
Thank you.
Can't go back.
After to be employed as of yesterday.
They have to be,
Okay, that's what I need to know right there, thank you.
they have to be employed during that period and currently employed. Yes, Chief.
As of yesterday.
Judge, I apologize, I was
No.
limited in my answer, but since the attorney said that, remember that we do limit our part-time employees to only 99 hours a month. I have several that would have worked over that, but we limit them due to benefits and retirement. So therefore, I understand that they only worked a percentage of what our full-time employees did, but that was because we limited them to that. So I'm not saying that they're not due the same compensation nor less. That's for you to decide naturally, but we do limit those employees to only 99 hours a month.
But you have to keep in mind that this is payment for services actually performed.
I agree. And my opinion of it was that if I had a part-time employee that worked half of what he was allowed to, then his time be considered as a full month of working that month. So that's the way I rationalize it.
I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but would we, I guess it'd take me amending my own motion or somebody else doing it, but what about we go ahead and address all of our full-time employees today, and perhaps on the regular or on a special meeting, we put that on the agenda for ARPA payment, premium, or whatever formula we want to use for paying at a pay rate for those part-time employees.
Can we address them in two separate statuses? William, do you think?
Well, I don't have any doubt that you could do that.
We could?
Well,
Okay.
Well, I'd like to see the order, and I'd like to see the total costs, so.
Well, I mean, just to give you an idea, I mean, somebody mentioned there was 180 employees with all offices combined. Is that jail, county clerk?
You'd be surprised how many won't qualify.
Everybody.
Yeah,
So,
some-
so if you had 180 employees, they're all full, let's say they were all full-time at $2,000, that's $360,000. That's just a little, so I assume our number is gonna be probably well under that, because we've got part-timers, we've got people that haven't been here for the 20 months, or they've been here 6 months or 3 months. So this is gonna be well under 10% of what we got in the ARPA account right now. So I understand the reasons for wanting to know what we're gonna spend, but
And
You know.
it will certainly be less than the monies allotted for premium payments. So.
absolutely.
And I also think that if we give Alicia some time to take those parameters and tell us what it's gonna cost, it may open up some areas that we're forgetting or not mentioning because we're doing this on the fly. I know just in our short conversation yesterday, we kept coming up with things that we didn't think about initially, and I think that would continue to be the case, so.
Well, and we, certainly there's money, there's gonna be plenty of money there is, and I understand that, but frankly, I just wanna get these employees money as quickly as we can. I mean, these people have worked through a lot, and we've had COVID in situations, and Lord knows what they had to put up with and deal with in the jail with inmates that had COVID, and the risk. I want to go ahead and try to get this money to these people. So, I mean, I would like for us to do this for the full-time employees today, and then, we take up part-time, and then maybe in January, we have a workshop and address maybe other issues with respect to premium pay and other areas too, but.
Part of my reasoning for wanting to know what it's gonna cost us is if you're willing to spend $360 and it only costs $260, then we can up the amount per employee and spend the $360, so. That's part of the reason I want to know what it costs.
I think we can come back and do that even later, though.
Oh, there's no doubt that we can. I'm just trying to do it now.
Yeah, no, I get it. But I'd like to at least get something immediately, and then
Kind of still exploring this, and I'm having side conversations with the treasurer. If we started at March 2020 and went through November 2021, we'd be looking at 21 months, so the maximum could be 2,100. Where did the 2,000?
That was just a number
Okay.
that, as I was thinking, and I thought it'd be best, to obviously recognize people who have been with us the entire 20 months or whatever it works out to be. If it's 21 months, I don't have a problem amending that to 21 months. But the number 20 kind of stuck in my head is when COVID really hit us, state of emergency. 21 months is fine with me.
Do you have other concerns, Alicia?
It's a lot, but I mean, we'll
Thank
get
you.
it figured out. And just as a clarification, I can pay the FICA and employer retirement from the ARPA funds for this specific amount. So it will not be an additional cost in the general fund, budget, or the department, budgets. It will,
Alicia.
Straight, come from ARPA itself.
Alicia made the suggestion to me yesterday that this be its own separate individual payroll.
Well,
And I think that's a good idea.
I agree.
I talked under Janet, and it would actually be easier for us to run two checks for the same pay period. So our next pay period, it's I was slated for Christmas Eve, but it'll probably run before that. So it would be that they would get two direct deposits for that same time period, but the one would be for the premium.
It would be an additional $200 processing fee for the court is what we'd be looking at. So, but I think it's much cleaner that way.
I agree.
Right.
I agree.
And that way that I've got the reports that we need to be able to show the reporting.
And then we would just
for
have
ARPA.
to, then we would just have to do a transfer of funds to the payroll of court from the ARPA funds. Yeah. I'm good with that.
We should, you're gonna have to run the payroll and then bill us, and we can pay you back out of that. Does that work? Or if you if you run it and then we can pay
And
you.
the same thing with the sheriff too.
Yeah, it would have to be.
Yeah, because that's the only way that I can do it, because we're not in the same, payroll system.
That's fine with me.
Okay.
As long as it don't get excluded, I'm
Oh, good.
fine, yes.
You've always been part of the conversation.
No, my staff, no,
No, weird.
I am excluded.
Yes, you are.
Yes, sure. You can pay us here today.
Okay, where are we,
What do you all wanna see
Chris?
at the next
I don't-
meeting?
What-
What do I need to provide to you all the next meeting? What are you expecting? Are you expecting what we did pay out, or what we're planning to pay out that payroll, or, I just
Yeah,
wanna make
that's
sure
fine.
that I'm providing you all what you're expecting. A list of employees and about that they got, or,
Would that be
we
sufficient?
can do any reporting that you all,
I think we're on a path to approve it, so.
Well, we've got a motion on the floor.
Right.
I don't know that it may have been seconded, I didn't hear
I
one.
don't have a second.
But,
I'll second it.
okay. It's like Joe.
Joe, okay.
We have a motion by Magistrate Davis, second by Magistrate Graham, and that's to issue a premium payment to all full-time.
On full-time employees from, I think County Attorney Elkins said March 5th,
Yes.
2020, at a rate of $100 a month for all full-time employees who were with us effective yesterday, December the 7th, 2021.
Okay, that's the stated motion and second.
And so the maximum on that is $2,100.
$2,100.
I doubt that we have this situation, but if there is somebody that's no longer with us after yesterday, they technically still have to be with us to do this, correct? So I don't think we have that situation, but just to be clear.
Okay.
they might not leave now,
Yeah. Incentive to stay 2 more weeks.
at least.
Okay, any discussion, comments, questions? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Okay, Magistrate Davis.
That's all I had. Thank you all for that.
And last but certainly not least, Magistrate Elkins.
Maybe largest even. I'm not sure. I have nothing, Judge, but thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Let's see, I think we're at the end, aren't we? Yep, we're at adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Magistrate
Second.
Constantopoulos, second by Magistrate Davis, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
You're gonna have fun explaining this on the radio.
I'm gonna say call Alicia.
I was trying to make that as